You walk the duckies, Ryan.
Okay.
All right, thank you. I was gonna say, what I, before,
Yeah.
gonna do this song for Steve Boyd Fitness Program.
That's right.
Didn't graduate.
Okay.
Your 10,000 steps is what.
We'll go ahead and begin. Now we'll go ahead and begin. It is January 2nd, 2025. This is our regularly scheduled City of Glenwood Springs City Council meeting. We'll go ahead and take roll.
Thank you, Mayor Wusa. Mayor Wusa,
Present.
Councillor Schachter, Councillor Weimer, Councillor Zelinski, Councillor Sims,
He's online, so we'll go to panelists. There we go. I don't see him there. Yeah. So if we go over to attendees, let's see if we see Matt. There he is, Matthew. We'll promote him to panelists. Oh, Matt, you need to accept your panelist position. There we go. I think you probably just popped on. So now we'll go ahead back to panelists and we will look for Matt. There we go. And Matt, there we go. And we'll just keep you right there and you'll
All right.
stay. We can now see the video of you on the left and the video of all of us up here on the right. We'll
Yes.
keep you there unless there's a presentation, in which case
Okay,
bump to the back. At which
sounds
point
perfect.
you can just you raise your hand and or shoot me a text or both, and I'll kind of try to keep up. Okay, thank you.
Will do.
Okay, perfect. So you can finish up. Roll.
we have a quorum.
Great. So Counselor Godus is not here this evening and Counselor Dem is not here this evening. Excellent. Any agenda changes or conflicts? I see none. Any council announcements? Let's do a little Happy New Year. Yeah, Happy New Year, 2025. I hope it's a great year. Citizens appearing before council. As a reminder, these are for items that are not on the agenda and comments are limited to 3 minutes. So I believe we might have 2 folks. Nope. Okay. Just one. Mike Harmon is here. Mike, I'm going to have you come to the podium. You have 3 minutes. I hate interrupting people. So if you can keep an eye on the screen, it'll tell you when you're getting down to 3 minutes. And if you can just wrap it up by the end of that 3 minutes. Thank you.
Okay, thank
Tell-
you.
Perfect.
For letting me do this. I'm
Yep.
ready to start.
So hold on 1 second. We'll go ahead and pause it
Okay.
and start it
Any
over.
reference to sales
Oh,
tax included?
Hold on 1 second. I need your name and if you live in
Okay,
city
my name
limits.
is Michael Harmon. I 1121 Red Mountain Drive, Glenwood Springs, Colorado.
Excellent. We're going to
Okay.
start his over. Okay, great. Start it over at 3 minutes and we'll go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, any reference to sales tax also includes use tax. A 1 cent sales tax was passed in 1967 by the Glenwood Springs for the general fund. 1973, a city council passed an ordinance establishing 2 funds, Capital Projects Fund and Equipment Replacement Fund. No financing sources were attributed to either fund at that time. In 1975, after 2 failed attempts, another 1 cent sales tax was adopted, with half going to the general fund and half going to the Capital Projects Fund. The Capital Projects Fund portion at 1/2 cent was restricted for water and sewer infrastructure projects only. The first 2 attempts included other capital needs, land and buildings, which voters shot down 4-1 and 2-1. The 1/2 cents going to the Capital Projects Fund was for water, sewer infrastructure projects, and is a perpetual tax so that the funds would always be available for future water sewer project needs. This established a permanent funding source within the Capital Projects Fund for a designated specific purpose. I visited with a council member from 1975 who reiterated the fact that the 1975 Capital Projects Fund sales tax was specifically for water and sewer infrastructure needs in perpetuity. I asked 2 players in the 2A measure if using capital projects funds was ever for water sewer utility needs during the street improvement projects was discussed. The answer was no. I asked the city manager the same question and he replied it was looked at but not used because of ordinance number 5 series of 1973, which specifically excluded water and sewer infrastructure needs. Well, that's correct. It does. Ordinance number 583 was the acquisition and improvement fund imposition. Nothing to do with the capital projects fund. It was a 3-4 cent sales tax. Our citizens have been misled at a cost to them for the next 20 years in excess of $75 million. The capital projects fund has been used and intended, if the capital projects fund had been used as intended for the last 49 years, it would have always been water money there for the water sewer infrastructure needs, including the wastewater pretreatment plant at the west end of town. And the street tax fund starting in 2006, if it had been properly managed and its primary intended purpose of fixing streets, the funding would have always been there for the major street construction projects. The capital projects fund has been a cash cow for many years on equipment, never qualifying to be funded with the sales tax. That sales tax passed was specific for water and sewer projects and in perpetuity and nothing else. The equipment replacement fund has never received any funding sources, so it went by the wayside. The language in to establishing the capital projects was for land, buildings and equipment, which is equipment, lights, plumbing, heatings, cooling, and the improvement and construction of public works, including the cost expenses. Therefore, that's public works is water and sewer. The equipment replacement fund was for acquisition, repair and maintenance of such vehicular and other equipment utilized by various departments of the city and the replacement thereof.
Okay, Mike, here's what I would like to say, is that you are impassioned about this. This is so important to you. And you came up here and I really appreciate that you presented it to us. You're giving us a lot of information very quickly. If you could go ahead and email, it looks like you've written it up. If you could email us that so that we could also read it. Some of us, want to be able to absorb it a little bit more. But your time is up.
Okay, and it's
Okay.
it's being recorded, so you
It's
can always
being
access it there.
Yeah.
There's way too much here to cover in 3 minutes
I
and give it
agree.
justice, because
Yeah.
this is a
Okay.
big, I don't know if you realize how big this issue is.
Okay, well, thank you. so
49
much.
years of mishandling.
Okay,
Not
thank you.
saying it's this council, it's.
Yeah, I appreciate
49
that.
years. Thank you very much.
Thank
Thank
you. Have a good night. Nice to see you, Mike. Okay. Okay, excellent. We will see, are there any other community members here? For items not on the public on the agenda. Okay, I'm gonna close that. We will move on to, I already did the council response to citizen comments, so we'll move on from that. Bring it back to council for a motion to approve the consent agenda. Okay. Counselor Zelinski,
I'd like to move to approve the consent agenda.
and a second. Anyone want to second
Second.
that? Okay, I've got a motion by Counselor Zelinski, a second by Counselor Schachter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. We will move on. We're moving on to actions and or presentations section in our agenda. Item number 11 is Planning and Zoning Commissioner appointments. So I will open it up. Counselor Weimer.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. If I may, earlier today in a work session, we had two wonderful applicants and not enough time with either to really, fully spend as much time as we would like to have, just because they were such good people and interesting people. But it was enough time to fully understand and appreciate their qualifications, their passions, their background, their intent, and their qualifications. And I think we walked away with a really good feeling, and I would like to therefore make a motion to approve both Patrick Corcoran and Marjorie Lear to fill the 2 vacant alternate positions on the Planning and Zoning Commission.
Okay, I have a motion by Counselor Weimer
I'd like to second that motion.
and a second by Counselor Zelinski. So this would be to appoint both of this evening's applicants to our open alternate planning and zoning positions. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, excellent. We will move on to number 12, 2024 construction projects wrap up and 2025 construction preview.
Right. Work. Should be.
Do you need help, Brian?
Of course I need help.
Voice from the truck.
I thought he was 13 doors away.
Oh, the word that says share, but like you just told me.
I was gonna say.
All right.
I should have said separate.
No, you just sort of think.
But then-
Read.
That should-
It looks great. Thank you. All right. Good evening, council. Ryan Gordon, city engineer. So I wanted to present kind of a wrap up of what we did in 2024 last year and give you a preview of what we're trying to accomplish this year. Well, there we go. On my screen at least. So you've probably seen this, one of this map before. I didn't really change it other than complete description of what we did. I'll kind of go through this really quickly since we've kind of had the same discussion before. But again, the A-line breaks at both Storm King Drive and at West First were either accomplished in late 23 or early 24. The debris flow mitigation basins, B through D, have been completely done and we're out of that. The debris flow basin A, which is above the water plant, is in construction still and will be done early this year. I'm gonna say this year, not next year. I'll probably screw that up 6 times, but pump station 11,000 was completed. It's going through its final testing and certification right now and be ready to pump wastewater very, very soon. The Oasis Creek Lift Station was completed and has gone through all its paces and is operational. The Devereaux Bridge redecking project was completed. 6th Street North Landing, we got all of the deep underground work done in 24. That again will be a project that will continue this next year. The Downtown Alleyways project, we completed block 45, which is the block behind the old Hotel Denver, the Hotel Maxwell Anderson. And again, we have another phase of that, let's say, or another aspect that's happening currently, basically. And I'll go over that in the next slide. The Riverview Drive stormwater project was completed. Other ones, Blake Avenue, the first phase was completed, which looks great. Drive down there, the lights are on now, much improved. We had the South Grand chip and seal project that was completed. And then on the other half of South Grand from 23rd to 27th, we did a mill and overlay. We had one other chip seal project over in the Glenwood Park area on Old Lodge Road. And then to wrap up what we did last year was the 3 Mile Confluence. So that's kind of what we accomplished this last year. So we decided not to rest on our laurels. And so we took a bigger chunk of the proverbial apple, right? Given that we got the 2A, measure passed, we are looking to really jump in with 2 feet and go gangbusters. So this is again the same map of different lines of what we're trying to accomplish. And I talked about a few of the ones already. So Basin A should be done in April at the very latest. We don't anticipate any closures of any trails or the roadway. So that should conclude pretty quickly here. So block 44. So this is down behind, say, Springs and Docks. We're starting that work presently. We thought we had to do some gas line work, but that overall doesn't need to happen. So in fact, on Tuesday of next week, we're starting to remove the alleyway, the surface, and start to redo a lot of the utilities there. So that is happening already. We're having meetings with the business owners on a weekly basis to keep them up to speed. So that's progressing really well. Again, I mentioned 6th Street North Landing will be finished this calendar year in 2025. A lot of work left to do. I just wanted to bring up to speed on one change that we have made is we are altering what the north side of 6th Street is going to look like. The original design had parallel parking and it had both a dedicated bike lane and a dedicated sidewalk. What we've done after consulting with the businesses and a bunch of others, the DDA is another group that we talked about. We're going to reestablish and put back diagonal parking in that block. In order to do that, what we're doing is we're going to remove we're basically going to take the bike path and the sidewalk. Instead of have two independent ones, we're going to smush them together and have one 10-foot wide shared use path. On the south side, we're still going to have a big 8-foot wide sidewalk, right? And so our theory is that while the idea of an independent protected bike lane in a big sidewalk sounds great in theory, there's no place for those pieces to connect to, and there never will be. Not to say we don't want that, but there's just not space. So it would be this one piece in the puzzle that doesn't really fit in the grand scheme of things. You know, this 10-foot wide shared use path is what the Rio Grande Trail is what 6 and 24 bike path will be when we finalize that, right? So it fits really nicely into the scheme, and it just makes things a little bit easier. And certainly go into more detail, but just want to let you know we're working through that. And we had a conversation with DDA at their last board meeting, and they were very supportive. So it's a positive change, we think, for the project. So the other thing too is I got real creative this time. So I have two colors. So blue are design. Yeah, I know. Take a step back. I may add a third color next year. So hold on to your horses. And the red is going to be construction projects, but
Say the colors again.
blue are design or planning efforts, and red will be construction.
Construction this calendar year.
This calendar year. That's right. Yeah. So I'm gonna. I touched on those ones that are sort of active right now. So up in the upper left-hand corner in the Cedar Crest neighborhood, we're going to do some really minor drainage improvements. There's been some issues with water. That's there's no curb and gutter over there. We redid the roads about 5 years ago, and curb and gutter was not planned. So we're going to put some little asphalt berms to help control some of the stormwater up there. And as we're moving through the stormwater system, this will be one phase of that to kind of clean up that, but we're going to do a few improvements there. We have a grant from FMLD into the Whitewater Wave Park down at Devereaux and Midland. We're going to be doing a crossing, a rapid flash beacon and a crossing in a way for people to get out of the river without damaging the banks. In the design over here. So we're starting the design of a roundabout at Wolfson and Midland Avenue, kind of where the new RAFTA facility is, but challenging road to get in and out, particularly if you're coming down and trying to turn left to go towards exit 114. It's really hard when there's a lot of traffic. So a roundabout was what was recommended in various traffic studies previously, and then we're moving forward with that design. We already have about a 20% conceptual design, so we're taking that to complete that this calendar year. Still over in the Meadows area, there's a stretch of sidewalk from East Meadows Drive, which is where there's the Kind Castle and there's access down to Petco. There's no sidewalk on the west side. A lot of folks are just walking on the side of the road or on not on the roadside, but on the dirt, so to speak. A lot of people from the apartments coming down to the rec center. So there's about 150 feet of sidewalk that we want to put in there. So we're going to do that. And then in that same area, we're going to redo the next section of roadway over in the Meadows area. So that would be in front of the rec center. That whole roadway is going to be fixed like we did 2 years ago in the rest of the Meadows area. So one of the other things that we're doing, you know, is been on the list. So Highway 6 and 24, I mentioned earlier, we've kind of been in sort of a limbo for a while. The design is basically done. This really ties to that devolution process we're going through, which had a few little scheduled hiccups. So I have that as a design project here in this list. While it's almost designed right now, we're waiting for a few of the other pieces to fall into place. The devolution is one, and probably go out for some more monies with DOLA. That could get accelerated, but at this point, it seems like if it would happen this year, it'd be late this year. And we probably want to start that in one calendar year. So that's probably going to be a 26 project.
But it's not going to be a 27 project.
It is not going to be a 27 project. No, yeah. No, we should have everything done on the devolution side, should be done within the next 6 weeks or so. Then it has to go to the CDOT Transportation Commission, which then they give it over to us. And then we can't go after the DOLA grant monies until we actually own the infrastructure or own the roadways. And so that won't happen until through the devolution process. So Unfortunately, there's been some schedule hiccups. Other thing on the designs aspect is we're really going to take a holistic approach at two areas. One is the Cowden 8th Midland 7th Street area. And try to figure out and look at the 8th and Midland intersection. We have some safety improvements that we're going to do. Let's say low hanging fruit things to help people cross the road there. So probably some better signage, maybe some other things, a light, maybe a rapid flash beacon, but we're looking holistically as what that intersection should be. And then kind of look into the Cowden neighborhood. There's some issues that need to be fixed there. But then as we sort of thought about it, we wanted to kind of take a whole look at not just the Cowden neighborhood, but then through 7th Street, 7th and 8th and where it comes, and then basically all the way behind us here to Colorado, and try to get a holistic approach. And we've had discussions with RAFTA about making a bigger bike lane, a bike path through there. So our initial step here will be a comprehensive survey for both topographical and existing conditions, but also easements, property rights, all that kind of stuff to really get an idea. And then we're going to do a very, very robust public outreach process. We're doing the same thing here over in the Glenwood Park subdivision. That's a big area that we're really targeting. It's needing a whole lot of work. The roads are in pretty bad condition. There is really no or incomplete storm drain over there. We also are looking to install a raw water line to hopefully hook onto a future raw water system to be able to water both the parks and the schools over there, and just and clean that whole area up, bringing it back up to code, right? Better sidewalks, curb and gutters, that kind of stuff. And again, first step is to get a comprehensive survey and then a very large public outreach. So these are two areas that will, again, set us up for future construction seasons. We have some visions in how long these will take. So these are probably multiple year construction periods, just the extent of what they are. But again, wanting to go through a intelligent design and public outreach before we do anything. We have the back in some of the construction projects. So Red Mountain North, we've done a few little pieces over there. This is the one last piece on that neighborhood, which is some sanitary and some water line improvements. And then of course, some resurfacing over there. And so the other one, so Coach Miller Drive is something that we actually have an RFP already on the street. And that is going to be replacing the road, but then it's upgrading a water line. Right now, the water line actually cuts through the school. So we're going to put the water line into the road. We're going to add some curb and gutter. There's the parking area kind of by Lone Tree Park that is substandard, I guess is a good way to put it. So we're going to clean that up. We're going to add some stormwater infrastructure and take care of some other utility needs. Add sidewalks that are connectivity to the school, plus some ramps to get down to the Rio Grande Trail. So a good project. You know, Coach Miller Drive is in kind of bad shape as a roadway. In that same area, we've been working with RAFTA as well. So RAFTA this year is going to remove the rest of the rail line from 23rd Street down to 7th. And so in addition to that, and I have that here as kind of a big line, but there's 3 red blobs on this map, as you can see, and these are the crossings. So at 23rd Street, there's still rail track in the roadway. They're going to come in and remove that trail, track. They're going to do it also at two other spots. So Riverside Drive, again, there's rail crossing, remove that. And then we're going to do it here down at 7th Street. So we're getting all that taken care of, hopefully early this season. So that's been needing to happen for quite some time. But of course, it's a RAFTA-owned piece of infrastructure. So I've been working with those guys. Another project we have designed and that's on the street, Lincolnwood. The upper half of Lincolnwood, again, is in real bad shape. We have some low spots, which are contributing to some settling of the road. So new roadway, new curb and gutter, improve some drainage up there as well. Blake Avenue, our second phase is going to happen this year. So this will be all of 23rd, from Grand Avenue up to the Blake, where it heads to the north. And that next block from 23rd to 21st is our plan to do that. And that'll be a lot of storm drain, water line, undergrounding of electric, where we can, new roads, new curb and gutter. And that too is we're continuing that larger sidewalk shared use path. So from Grand Avenue up, we're going to have a wider pedestrian biking facility. And again, it's going to kind of tie into what we have going down Blake. So again, promoting this kind of ideas of trying to make our biking and pedestrian network more usable.
Is it a fair statement to say that this is a very comprehensive list of what we can do? Was I not on? Oh. A very fair assessment to say it's because of the recent sales tax that we have more funds to be able to do more of the water and sewer at the same time?
Yeah, that is, I mean,
Funded.
our approach would have been the same of doing water and sewer and roads at the same
Yeah.
time, right? The philosophy of dig once, repair
Okay.
everything if you can.
Okay.
But this is allowing us to do a lot more,
Okay.
of address a lot of the more challenging areas.
Yeah,
Otherwise that we couldn't really do.
okay.
I would say, we're doubling the amount of monies from 2A that we're able to use, right? So I wouldn't say it's quite a doubling of the projects, but we're certainly able to do a lot more of the areas that we need. And I think a really good example are these two big design areas. Without the 2A money, to do, say, Glenwood Park would be not just multiple years, but many, many years, just the scale of construction. So this allows us to really comprehensively tackle areas in town that otherwise we could not.
Thank you.
And one of the things, so we have a 19th Street from basically the hospital down to Grand Avenue. We're in design. So I think, I guess a few, let's say, I think that's it, but I got 2 more slides even for you guys. So one other thing is we have a small little project over at the Coke Ovens. We have a grant with FMLD, so we're going to do some parking lot improvements. And one of the things, so streets department, we're doing some building upgrades down by the airport for buildings down there for our streets department. So I think that kind of takes care of the big projects. Let me just go to a couple other ones just real quick. So again, a few of the things that we're doing that aren't necessarily construction related, these are more studies design. So we're redoing our road and street condition assessment study, again, to give us information of what streets need to be repaired first. We have that list. That assessment was done 5, 6, 7 years ago. We want to have that updated so we have a better idea of where we stand. Looking to do a comprehensive stormwater master plan for the city. That ties into number 3, which is the stormwater infrastructure mapping. We did about half of that, or probably 3/4 of it in 24. And that's really going out and mapping where all of our stormwater infrastructure is. There is a river corridor master plan that we're looking to do, again, to really look what do we need to do to protect our river corridor and kind of get an idea of that. On the water side, we're undertaking all the water tanks, safety O&M stuff. So it's updating the vents, updating ladders, repainting, cathodic protection, general, O&M type stuff on that. We will be doing sewer line lining and water line replacements as needed throughout town. Again, we will do our normal sidewalk repair, striping, pedestrian crossings, those things that we do on an everyday basis, but I wanted just to kind of put it all down on paper. And then again, we do have a few overlay projects that I showed and some chip seal. And depending on where things land with the budget, if we can fit some more in, we certainly we'll tackle a few more. Lastly, I wanted to touch real quick on some of the transportation issues in programs. So one is we are looking to replace and upgrade the bus stations throughout town. A lot of them aren't ADA compliant and have problems with lighting or have problems with security. So we're going to be upgrading a lot of those. Our big one that we're really super excited that we'll come back with some more information is our micro transit pilot program. That we got a big grant from RAFTA. We should be rolling that out in the next couple months. So we're going to come back as a work session and talk more about that. TDM program with Clear, we worked with them to secure a grant. They were awarded end of 2024. So we'll be working with Clear to kind of take the next steps to establish what that looks like. We're wrapping up the CSAP, which is a comprehensive safety action plan, this May. That project will have a bunch of recommendations. Some of them construction projects, some of them like timing lights on Grand Avenue and things like that. So we'll be trying to implement some of those. And we've been talking to WeCycle, which is a bike share company. It's kind of an arm of RAFTA. But we've been working with them on some planning ideas for that. And we'll be coming back to you again as to chat about that. But again, we're looking to see where we can put those if we want to put those, where do they look like, what's the areas and how do they serve? So that'll be another transportation oriented item that we're doing. So, and I think that's it. So any questions or compliments? No complaints, just compliments.
No choices.
I love that. That's
Sleep next year?
Yeah, well, yeah, I was out. Yeah, no sleep for engineering and public works this year.
Did you have Mrs. Ford at the high school or at the junior high?
I did not know.
She would always finish class by, or a lesson by saying, questions, comments, gripes, or complaints. She needed to try this.
Yeah,
She
just
needed to try
compliments.
this.
There's
This is-
complaints aren't allowed. Now, any questions? I know I went through a ton of different projects and whatnot, but happy to.
Counselor Zelinski.
I had two questions. So I know we had talked about, especially with the bike share program, that we don't have the bike lanes. And so I'm curious on the North Landing, that shared path, is that going to be in front of the businesses?
So the shared path is going to be, yes, so it's on the north side, not the North Landing side, but the north side.
Uh-huh.
So you'll pull in, parking will pull in, and that shared use path will be in front of the vehicles, back behind the curb and gutter.
Got
So
it.
you're gonna have diagonal parking.
Yep.
A new curb and gutter, like a 6 foot or 5 foot landscaped stretch buffer
Okay.
zone, and then your path.
So if I could make a suggestion,
Please.
I don't know if it's feasible. I'm just thinking that's a place where people are gonna be more like milling about rather than like on like some of our other shared paths where it's like people are running or walking their dog or riding their bike, not meandering. Maybe some striping or something, even if it's just like a suggestion, just to kind of create some delineation.
No, that's a great suggestion. And one of the things we've talked about is the, let's say the active cyclists who are coming from the canyon on a mountain bike or a road bike, right? Like, we don't want them to be on this pathway. We're gonna do lots of signage, lots of education that, hey, this is a pedestrian zone, maybe even a dismount zone, or to
Okay.
go slowly through that area, and then absolutely some striping and some signage to help out for folks to understand that, yeah, it is not a, riding your bike as fast as you can to
Yeah.
the spot.
I've had some
Good
close
suggestion.
calls on Grand and that sidewalk. It was just
Yeah.
made me think of that. And then just for curiosity, who's conducting the comprehensive safety action plan?
So we have a consultant called Consor.
Okay, so
And
it's third party.
It's a third party, yeah, and they've done, quite a few of these in both the Denver region and then even in some locally. So we're,
You might have missed that meeting. They came and presented to us.
and they will be coming back in the next
Yeah.
couple weeks.
Awesome.
Not
I'm
weeks,
excited
maybe
to see
work
that.
sessions.
Yeah, I'm most interested about like the whole light timing with pedestrians
Yep.
and vehicles
Yeah.
and. Cool. Thank
Yep,
you.
no, and we've had some great conversations already with, CDOT owns and operates those lights.
Right, I
And-
know.
And so we've had some really productive conversations with them, and they're really willing to work with us.
I love
They have
hearing
some
that.
conditions that we have to meet, but they're happy to look at, no right-hand turns, some other things. So we're trying to come up with that, and we'll be presenting more to you guys as well.
Awesome. I look forward to that. Thank you.
Counselor Weimer.
No compliments, Ryan. However, can you just give us a super quick, overview? What is Southbridge in 2025?
Aha. Yeah, it was Southbridge was not part of my presentation.
Right.
So, next council session, we're doing a work session, a detailed work session on Southbridge. But 25 Southbridge is completing the design, getting things wrapped up from both the design, funding, right away, and really setting us up. We're still on track to be done with design, end of September of this calendar year. And then quickly be able to turn that around, hopefully, and get that out to bid. So if things work as we are hoping, there's still a lot of twists and turns. The beginning of 26 or maybe in the end of 25, we'll have a contractor and a contract team selected and perhaps starting work.
Fantastic.
That's the hope. And again, next work session, we'll be going over a lot. We have a lot better information on what the costs are, our funding opportunities, and all that kind of stuff. So
Okay.
it'll be a very detailed discussion on where we stand.
And I know it's super early days. Do you have a sense yet or hypotheses what can be done around Cowden? Like, it's just so tight down there. Like, do you have
Yeah, it really is, you know, so we've had multiple discussions about that, and there has been studies that have looked at that intersection, not necessarily Cowden, but if we look at the intersection of Eighth and Midland, the recommendations are to extend the left turn pocket onto Eighth from coming off of Midland.
Okay.
You can kind of envision that.
Yep.
Right now, there's not enough space to do that. Now, we don't think that there's a problem in 2025, but soon more traffic comes in, we're gonna have to address that. So that probably means some sort of shift of the road. Now, at one point, a discussion on a roundabout happened, but that's not really a good spot for a roundabout. One of the things we're challenged with the Cowden neighborhood is off of, it's Overland, which is off of Midland, you know, it comes in a very acute angle. It's a dangerous intersection. You know, I think I think there's been a lot of close calls and I think we've been lucky, but we have to kind of figure this out. And so, various ideas that we've kind of thought about is, do we make that a one way in? So if you come off onto Overland and not come off, do we look at, you know, deleting that intersection altogether? Can we square it up? So we're trying to figure out what to do. We do have some right of way there that we could possibly shift the road, towards the mountainside. That's kind of to the southwest side, to try to improve that. It's also an area that we've been talking to RAFTA about. Could we get another bus stop in there? You know, that Red Mountain neighborhood is underserved from any public transportation. Obviously, our microtransit system, we're going to help out with that a lot. But again, if we think from a public mass transportation perspective, there is no stop right there, even though all the buses, literally every bus goes past there. So we're trying to figure out, can we weave all that in? And that's really, when we started to look at this neighborhood, we had some ideas. But then we kept, you know, unraveling the onion, right? And it was like, well, what about this? And it was like, okay, we need to take a step back and really do something comprehensive and do it once and not address this in 5 or 6 years again.
Cool.
Great,
Thank
that's
you.
awesome.
Yeah.
Anything? Okay, I have a couple questions. I just want the community to hear that North Landing is happening with Sixth Street.
Yeah.
Which I know there were, you know, there was dialogue, we were gonna do Sixth Street, but North Landing may come later. So that's really nice to hear. I'm excited. I'm excited to see it come to fruition.
Yeah, and you know, I guess one thing that just to make sure everybody's aware of, right? There's a bathroom going in.
Yep.
We've actually changed the design from a 1-stall bathroom to a 2-stall, 2 doors to be two independent rooms, which we thought would be a better improvement. We've changed a little bit of that, but yeah, that North Landing is absolutely going in this year.
That's awesome. I'm gonna just keep pushing on that 6 and 24 path, because I think that when I got on council in 2020, they said next year. So, I'm excited to see that one come to fruition, but that wasn't a compliment.
I'll allow it.
For
I
it.
know.
I love it. I love it. Hey, when the devolution is done, I do believe that there is one relatively easy change we could do to increase public safety, and that is that there is no crossing awareness mechanism, Village Inn to what I believe is Subway, but it's been closed for a really long time. If we could get a flashing sign there, I just know at night, it's dark. I'm just like, I worry about community members and visitors. So.
Well, that's a great comment, and we actually have rapid flash beacons going in as part of the 6th Street
Yep,
project.
yeah, exactly. I heard that.
So yeah, so we have 3 going in as part of this project at the Village Inn crossing to Subway, and then the next leg from the Subway or closed Subway
Yeah,
to
yep.
the Maverick gas
Excellent.
station.
Good.
And then on 6th Street, where you come out of the tunnel and you're going to cross over 6th Street, will be a rapid flash beacon there
Okay.
as well.
I'd love to see those, you know, as soon as we could get those in after. I know that we couldn't do it until it actually belongs to us, but,
Absolutely.
and then Coach Miller,
Yes.
when we're doing that and we have equipment down there, could we also coordinate with Parks and Rec and see if that dog park might need maybe they need a little help down there, and it might reduce costs if you guys are already down there with some equipment, because that dog park needs attention.
I'll make a list of it. Yeah.
Okay, thank
Absolutely.
you. Hold tight. I think that was it. Thank you. Yeah, Counselor Schechter.
Thank you, Ryan. As long as it came up, we've had accidents there. Is there something to improve Linden and Sixth Street intersection. It's extremely dangerous, particularly to bikers. We've had one serious bike accident at least there. That it comes in, it's a weird, drivers can't see bikers, bikers have no mirrors or warning sign. It's come up before. I would take a look at that intersection. It's a dangerous one.
Linden is by the,
Just
Right.
past the antlers.
exactly.
Just
I'm
past the
trying to think
antlers
of,
where you cross
I'm like,
over there.
daylight donuts. but
That
then
one's,
hurry up,
that one.
know what I'm talking about.
Yeah, that's a
Mhm.
tricky, all these roadways that have these acute angles are
Yeah.
challenging, but
Well, and my own feeling, I put the responsibility on the peds and bikers, whether it mean having a mirror there or a
Oh,
warning sign.
Your mic got turned off. I don't know if you did it.
But either way, something ought to be done because it is an issue.
Yeah.
Thank
yeah,
you.
and so that's the terminus of that 6 and 24 bike path. So we'll
Yes.
definitely make sure we're taking a look and,
Okay.
and again, yeah, that's a good comment. So we'll look at seeing
Yeah.
if it's,
Thank you.
minimum signage, but maybe there's some structural.
Something, mirror signage, whatever.
That's awesome.
Thanks.
I'm excited for that to be our jurisdiction because I think it's a great opportunity for us to address real-time issues without having those layers of having to go through CDOT. Counselor Zelinski.
Sorry, one more question.
Sure.
There was a mention of bus stop shelter replacement. Are those city-owned properties or are those, is that coordinated with RAFTA?
Currently the bus shelters are owned by a third party called
Okay.
Outdoor Promotion. They actually have the advertisements on there.
Gotcha.
But the new bus shelters will be the cities. So we have
Okay.
a grant that we have that we're going to be utilizing, but we are working with RAFTA to make sure they kind of look the same, right? And have the same
Okay.
features and have some of the same safety equipment. They're obviously the ones who do this all the time. So we're relying on them to say, hey, tell us what the shelter should look like. And again, our idea too is if you have sort of cookie cutter ones, right? It reduces the cost substantially instead of redesigning one I think we have 28 of them or something like that.
Oh, gosh, I had no
So,
idea.
Wow.
we're gonna try to clean up some, delete some, move some around, fix them up. So,
it.
yeah.
Got it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you,
Ingrid.
entire team. Oh, Matthew, sorry.
Yes.
Matt.
I just want to know when we're going to reopen Sixth Street. Do we have a target date for that?
Oh, there he is.
Yeah. So the project should be complete at the end of this construction season.
Yeah.
I don't want to get a time frame just because we don't really know, but we're looking that September, October timeframe.
To finish it
To be done, totally out, everything done and wrapped up. Yeah.
and probably reopen the street? I mean, when I say open it up, I mean like digging in it and doing all that sometime in April.
Oh, yeah, well, we're gonna start construction here probably within the next couple months. It's
Okay.
really weather dependent and there's some things that they can do not in the roadway itself. So
Yeah.
North Landing, we have some services that need to be done, some more underground work. But it's Sixth Street construction is gonna start hot and heavy March. And be
Okay.
March through September of a challenging project in that regards.
Right.
But,
Thank you.
yep.
Thank you, Matt. Appreciate it.
Mhm.
Thank you, Ryan. Thanks to your entire team.
Thank you.
We appreciate you all and the community will also appreciate when we get all of these awesome projects completed.
We'll look forward and I'll give updates at some point as well on where we are. So,
Thank you.
thank you all for your time.
We're gonna take a 5-minute break, and then that'll allow Jonathan to settle back in with us, and then we'll all reconvene. So we'll be back at 7:06. Thank you. Grab a drink.
Good.
Father, I'm okay. Sometime in the morning. And I'm like, well, I need to get going. It's time. You stay the weekend? I'm gonna do the weekend. I'm gonna get back next week. In the middle of the week.
I had to try you today too.
What?
I did it from your thing.
I know it's not. Ugh.
Get out of bed.
Nah.
It's real good. The fruit is great. The slaw could use more flavor.
That's right. Could use more flavor.
Community Development Director. I have update for the Habitat for Humanity Confluence Project, and more specifically, some amendments to the memorandum of understanding that this project has had for some time. I'm going to give you guys, there's a lot of technical financial information in this, so I'm going to split it up, bring you guys up to date on the project itself, just as a reminder, because it's been a while for you, and then we'll get into the details of Habitat's request for some amendments to the MOU. Just as a reminder, that MOU you guys approved, or some of you at least approved, in 2022. So we're looking at a couple years since that was signed. Let's go ahead here. So I've included a couple site plans and some pictures of the project of the Confluence. This is final. This is beyond final. This is moving to actual construction phases. So these are not concepts that are up for debate tonight. This is more of the memorandum of understanding and how the project functions, not so much the project details itself, but we can certainly talk about specifics. So this is a lovely picture. This is located along 8th and Midland near the Cowden neighborhood, as you had previously mentioned. This is the site plan. Hopefully you guys have been able to see. I tried to simplify it and bold some things out so that it's clear. It's a 2-building project with 6 units. So building C, you can see, has 2 3-bedroom units, and then building B, the larger there, has 4 2-bedroom units. So it's a mix of 2 and 3 bedrooms, 6 units total, 12 parking spaces, common open space, and all the other things that go through the entitlement process. Bringing this back up to date for you guys so you can just reorient yourself with where this project is and where it's located. And I just call out, that dotted line is the property boundary there, and the existing sidewalk. There's no changes to that. That's going to remain along that intersection there. This is just some schematics to show you what the 2-bedroom unit layout and 3-bedroom unit layout look like. The 2 bedrooms are approximately 858 square feet, and the 3 bedrooms are just over 1,200 square feet, 1,238. And I have included some building elevations for you to just bring this back to memory. I think, yeah, that's all. I can bring this stuff back up. The main reason that we're here, we have an MOU that was signed between the city and Habitat January 2023. So 2 years ago now. And that's been quite a lot of time in the construction world. A lot of things have happened. And what Habitat is experiencing, like most people are experiencing in the construction world, is their costs have increased significantly. So there's some components in the MOU, if you had a chance to read through it, that talk about price and area median income limits, that Habitat is experiencing their financial gap between what it costs to construct these units and what they're going to be selling them at an affordable rate has increased. So some of these need some adjustment for the MOU. And then we also have a suite of decisions for you guys to actually make and decide upon. And I'm going to go through those. I'm going to stop sharing this while I do that. And I can pull up the MOU or anything else that was included in your staff report for you guys. So the first one that's not a decision, it's super easy. That was a large change in Habitat's plans, is the removal of all mention of the Iddings parcel. If you recall, this was the second parcel that Habitat had an option for out on Airport Road. And they got into that and spent significant amounts of time and financial investment into basically determining that it's not really feasible for construction. There's some geographic constraints on the site that made it really challenging to pull that off. And they did environmental assessment for the site and found that it was just going to not be financially feasible, not be financially feasible for the project to go forward. So that is no longer going to be happening. Habitat's not using that option on that parcel. So we'll remove all mention of that from the MOU. And we'll also update the description for the 8th and Midland project to reflect the lower unit count. It was originally 8 units and moved down to 6. So we'll make that correction there. Moving on to some of the options and decisions for you guys tonight. I'm going to try and make this clear, but it is a little bit complicated, so stop me with questions and we'll work it out together. And also, Cheryl Bauer is here from Habitat to answer questions from the applicant side as well. And Gail is online. Lovely. We've got the team. So item number 3 in your staff report is referencing fee waivers and city priorities. In the MOU, City Council and the city decided to waive a lot of fees for this project. All of the building permit fees, all of our system improvement fees, And in exchange for that, Habitat agreed to give the city priority units as long as the fee waivers met that financial gap. So it has to equal it. It's not just that we waive fees and we get a priority. The amount that we waive actually has to match their financial gap, which I previously mentioned has increased. So that's in the MOU itself. Habitat has shared with us a lot of their construction costs to get to a new number. And we actually knew a while ago when we were discussing this, they gave us numbers that their gap was actually more than expected. And so we were looking at about $108,000 gap from what we were waiving in fees to their unit cost. So we already knew this was going to be a discussion with you guys. And in that time, some revision to some of the financial information, where we're landing, where Habitat is landing now, that cost is actually closer to about $150,000. So the priority unit is actually for city employees, a little bit different from some of our other projects that is more employees that work in Glenwood Springs. This is actually for City of Glenwood Springs employees priority unit. So if city council wants to execute on the 2 priority unit opportunities that we have, there is that cost associated with it. So the question to you tonight on that item is, do we want to execute on our opportunity for the priority units, given the additional cost of $150,000 per unit? We have the option of 2. I can go into that further. And then also, speaking of the priorities themselves, in the MOU, we stipulated that the City of Glenwood Springs would have the option for 2, and that Habitat could also offer as many priorities as the city has to other employers. So a couple decisions tonight on the priorities. Do we want them? Do we want 1? Do we want 2? And then Habitat is also wanting to increase the number of priorities they're able to do for the project to 4, regardless of what the city decides to do. I'm going to check in and make sure that all makes sense.
If you could.
Yes,
Like.
let me take a drink of water.
Just that second part.
And your mic is not on.
Mics are acting funny tonight. Sorry, everyone.
I
They
didn't
keep
hit my
turning
button. If you could please dumb down the priorities part. I understand like us taking our action, but I don't understand what the other priorities means to me.
Right. So we have our priorities that was agreed upon for our fee waivers.
Right.
And then also the same breath, Habitat and the city agreed that as many priorities as the city is utilizing, we put an up to 2 for ourselves. And that they could also do the same type of priority with another employer or employers. If we utilize 2 priorities, then they could basically sell 2 priorities to other organizations. But that's a limit on it.
Got it.
So I'm just going to use some random examples. So we have 2, Valley View could then purchase 1 for the Gap, and RAFTA could purchase 1 for the Gap for 4.
Got it.
The MOU stipulates that they can only utilize as many priority units with other employers as we use.
Okay.
So currently, if we decided to not use our priorities at 0,
Yep.
no other priorities are possible.
Got it.
If we use 1, then another 1.
Got
If
it.
we use 2, then another 2. Habitat in one of their requests is asking to expand that to up to 4 priority units out of 6
Okay.
for any employer.
Okay.
If we utilize our 2, that's open. Did I make more sense that time around?
Yep, it did. Thank you. And
Okay.
then, just because I wasn't part of this original conversation, if I could just get caught up to speed a little. So the way I understand it is that the city is getting a priority because of fees waived.
Yes,
So if we don't use our priority, we've still waived fees.
yes.
If somebody else gets a priority, they didn't waive any fees. So I'm just curious how that works.
Well, so think of it more of that Habitat is giving us their financial gap. It's this number between what it costs them to construct and the parameters around the affordable unit. And then in between, right? Because
Right.
they are not selling it at market rate. They're selling it at a highly subsidized.
Understood. Yep.
And so that gap between what it costs to construct and we have their per square foot costs.
Yep.
That's the gap that someone who wants a priority unit needs to cover. So our gap is partially covered by fees waived.
That's what I
Any
was
other
trying to
priority
understand.
unit is gonna
Okay,
fund that whole gap,
got it.
is usually how Habitat.
That's what I
handles it.
didn't quite understand. Thank you.
It is complex. Okay, so I think I've covered
Hold on
the
one second.
priority units, so
You,
stop me, because
Counselor Gomes.
I'll stop you. Hi, Ann.
good evening.
Good evening. So the funding gap is partially coming from a waivement of system improvement fees between 100 and 120,000.
Yes.
And where originally was the other 100,000 coming from?
So that's what we got to when we got into the actual like final plans development, when we see exactly what the project's going to be and we can calculate the fees to a more precise level. With the reduction from 8 units to 6, as you guys are probably fairly familiar, those fees that we agreed to waive went down because it's on a per unit basis for system improvement fees. So the amount that we were expecting to waive went down significantly with the unit reduction.
How much did it go down? Were those fee waivers going to 100% take care of that, the funding gap at the time in 2022?
At that time, we were expecting it to be pretty close.
Okay, which was like 200,000-ish.
Yes, not exact number, but around, I want to say 250 is stuck in my head, but we did look at it, and that's why the MOU was set up where it's not just like we get the priority unit no matter what. It had to meet that gap, realizing that when you construct these documents, it's a lot different from in a timeline of when the buildings are actually coming out of the ground and what those costs mean.
And and I'm sorry, can you tell me where the additional funds that are requested would come from?
That is a discussion that I'm going to hand over to Steve for a hot second.
So I think you guys would have a choice. I mean, I think that technically we could use 2C funds to do that. If you didn't want to do that and you wanted to use city resources, I would say that we've probably got the money in the A&I fund is where I would say that should come from.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. I covered priority units and the limitation. So other employment priorities, we got into that. Habitat wants to increase the allowance to up to total of 4 priorities, regardless of what we decide on if we want to utilize our own priorities. Then we're coming to the sale of units. And this all gets back to increased costs, increased financial gap. And so Habitat is trying to close that funding gap that they've identified through a variety of means with all of these requests. Another one is a request to expand the limit on area median income from 80 to 100% AMI. One of the things I want to point out here, between the 2 parcels that we previously had, Iddings and the 8th and Midland parcel, council had a very robust discussion on AMI and where you guys wanted it to be. And there was a decision that the Airport Road parcel would actually be at a higher AMI or have a small allowance that went up to 100%. So I just wanted to call that out and remind council of that aspect. But what Habitat is asking for now is that the AMI for the entire 8th and Midland Confluence project be raised to 100% AMI. So that would allow people that are earning a little bit more to qualify for these units, which also matches up to the final item, which is the initial sales price. Habitat, again, looking to close that gap of financing, is wanting to move that target sales price to an average of $375,000. There would be a differentiation between their 2-bedroom units and their 3-bedroom units. That's why they put an average. I will just call attention to council in the MOU that this was written, that Habitat did have, they reserved the right to increase this target sales amount. So it was never a hard and fast rule. Again, in the construction world, things change. So that is also written into the MOU. Let's see here.
I'm going
Take
to ask
breath.
a couple questions while you
Excellent.
take a moment, okay? I heard rumor that this project's also going to get grouped with, is it L3? I'll take-
Thank you for the reminder. Yes, so in addition to the priority units, and this is not actually an item that was contemplated in the MOU, but staff has reviewed it and thinks it's actually a great benefit for us if we decide to execute on our priority units or others. What Habitat's proposing is kind of increasing the community pool for the priority units. As it would work now, a project of 6 units, if we exercise one of our priority units, we have a city employee in there, they leave town, we get a priority of the next unit that's available.
Uh-huh.
And so you can imagine with only 6 units, that could take a long time. So Habitat would actually like to, with the new L3 project, include that as a community pool. And so your priority would come up a little bit quicker because those 88 or however many units over there that are in the deed restricted pool would also be part of that priority. So the next available unit in both projects would come up as an option for any of the employers that have priority.
And what's the AMI at L3?
It varies.
It does vary. They have a lot of, they've got some agreements with us, and I think ours went up to 120% AMI. So that's why I kind of said not all 88 units would fall into this, only the ones that would be 100% AMI. But it does increase that pool quite a large amount. And staff sees that actually as a huge benefit with no, at least none that we can think of right now, cons to that.
I'm gonna let Counselor Schachter jump in because he says the.
I want to piggyback off the
Yeah.
mayor. I didn't quite understand something. If Midland was standalone and the city had one priority unit for our employee and they moved out, why wouldn't we fill with another employee? I don't
Thank you for pointing
understand.
that out. I actually said that wrong. The scenario in which that would occur is if the person stopped working for the city of Glenwood Springs. If you recall, and we've had extensive negotiations
Yep.
on this, the city and Habitat agreed that that person doesn't get kicked out. So
Right.
they'd be able to stay, but then they're no longer our employee. So the next available, my
Got it.
apologies on that misstatement.
Thank
I
you.
knew
No.
it as I said it and I
No,
just,
no,
I was like,
that's
maybe
perfect.
no one noticed.
And that
That-
makes,
that
more
makes sense.
logical and actually makes me more.
And the other question, do you have handy, for a two-person household or, the 80, 90 and 100% AMI levels so we could look at tonight?
I can certainly grab that and pull it up
At
while we're
some point.
talking. Yep,
Thank you.
It's Garfield County, right?
it is Garfield County.
Thank you, Mayor.
I'm gonna just do it really quickly, Hannah. It looks like for a 2-person, should we do 2-person at 80%? Is 65,000, 100% is 81,000. So that's for 2 people.
Somewhere in between.
Well, yeah, somewhere in between. 3 people, 80% is 73,000 and 100% is 92,000.
And I'll bring that up right now so you guys can
Okay, thank you.
look at that.
Counselor Zawinski.
Not that you will be able to read it, but I can zoom in.
So I'm reading our the note, I guess this is the memo, I can't remember. Yeah, this is the memo from Habitat. So I'm reading under item 5. It says other employment priorities. Habitat wishes to clarify that it will seek up to a total of 4 priorities in combination of city purchase and other. So it sounds like will seek. So it's like there will be 4. So if there's 4 priorities that are gonna go out to employers of 6 units, that only leaves 2 for the
Right,
community?
that wouldn't be if approved. Because right now they're limited. If we executed 2, then they could do 2 others.
Got it.
That's the scenario right now, that they can
Right.
have 4. If
Okay.
we execute 0, the MOU states there are no other priorities that they can give.
Okay, that's what I was trying to, because it says like wishes to clarify that they will, and I was
Right.
like, you give a choice?
So there's
that's what I was like trying
there's
to
a
understand.
limiting factor in the MOU currently, but they wish to have, like, bottom line, what they're requesting, they'd like to be able to do 4 priority units out of 6, whether
Got
that's
it.
us or someone else, and just have that not tied to us executing ours,
Got it.
depending on your decisions tonight.
Do we have, Counselor Wyman?
So Hannah, the way that first MOU was written, if it's about these priorities. So if the city were to take one or two priorities, Habitat would have the ability to assign one or two priorities to other local businesses.
Yes, they
Right?
can only execute as many as we use.
Was that used as a carrot for us, or why is that relationship like that?
Let's let the applicant who is
I'm
online and in
recalling
person.
to the discussion
Let's
3 years
yeah.
ago, and it was something that council actually kind of tweaked a little bit.
Okay,
Um,
I'm just trying to understand the relationship around these priorities.
and
Like,
it looks
should
like
we
Carl wants to jump
care?
in.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think and Gail and Cheryl may have a slightly different recollection. I think council was trying to find the right level of subscription, if you will, to local employers versus just local community members who could have access to these. And I think that was at the time it was thought could be an 8-unit project, and that got you to 50% of the units. And I think that may have been what was on council's mind. And I don't know, is that how you kind of
I'm
remember
gonna
it,
let
Jonathan?
Counselor Gotis jump in. I'm gonna turn on his mic.
That does sound very familiar.
I do remember that. I think the debate at that time or the conversation at that time was, hey, we have some employers that if you can just give priority units to cover any funding gap, any funder can come in and do anything and just kind of sell the funding gap to a Valley View or Holy Cross or the school district or anybody that has a tax base or a lot of money. And so I think we wanted the idea, again, the small employer, like if somebody's working at, wherever, the tire shop, the local tire shop doesn't have the ability to buy a unit. And so I think that was, Mitchell, why we were trying to keep the community in mind. We were talking about that so that like a Valley View or Holy Cross didn't just suck up every affordable housing opportunity just for their employees.
Right. I'm recalling that now. You guys really wanted to keep open, that it wasn't all dominated by employers that owned them and had them as priority. That at least some of the units, back when it was 8, at least 4 of the units would be for any community member that works in the area that meets the criteria and doesn't have to be tied to an employment with a Valley View, a RAFTA, a city that had the funding. So it really opened it up for any employee and didn't limit it.
But the same objective could be managed through like a lottery system, right?
It could, a small reminder that this is also a mechanism that Habitat funds the subsidy for this, the
Okay.
cost.
It
Okay.
allows them to
It
actually
meets that gap. So that this is a tool that they utilize. This is a tool that they utilize to make sure that their subsidy is matching up with how affordable they need to be. Because obviously Habitat is constructing it at a much higher cost. And so they need every possible funding source. And this is one way that they do that.
So then I understand Habitat's desire for this priority concept. Does the city have, should we care about the number of priorities other than some desire to, be fair to small employers?
Mike. I can
Yeah.
actually, this is what she said. She just said, this is a
That's-
conversation we need
That's
to
the
have on the
decision
dais.
in front of
Yes.
you guys tonight.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'm just trying to wrap my
Great.
head, like the whole strategic sort of thing around, like what is a priority? Why is it important? And how to sort of think about it. That's where my head's at.
so what I would like to do, what I'd like to do is wrap up questions. And then I'd like to make sure that the applicant has an opportunity to respond to them. And then I'd like to jam out some of the easier ones. We have, it looks like 5 items on here, 5 items. Some of these are going to be easy. Some of them I think we can just dial in. And then once we get those off the table, then we'll tackle the ones that, to Counselor Zelinski's point, warrant some conversation, robust conversation.
Robust.
Mhm, yeah.
I'd have
Not your
nothing
average,
less.
everyday conversation. Do you have questions, Counselor Gotis? Okay, great. We'll go ahead.
I think it's a great conversation because think maybe you and I were the only ones that were here for
I agree.
that. So
I
maybe
agree.
we have to
Yeah.
have that whole conversation again.
Yeah.
But
It'll be abbreviated. It'll be
would the current fee waivers that we're getting, would that cover one unit?
No,
No, not even one unit.
no,
Okay, right, because we need 300,000 and we only have 120,000.
Right.
Gotcha.
yes.
Okay. I could have read that in the staff report probably a little closer. What consideration, did we get any consideration for the land that was donated?
Yes,
Yeah.
we did.
Okay,
So they have removed the land, and I can pull up. I got
I
I
don't
got
need, I
something,
mean, just
a
give me the,
budget that I can show you that I didn't have at time that Habitat sent me. So the land that we donated, we had an appraisal done, and that's been subtracted from their costs. So the cost to construct, that's
They got
So-
the credit for it. We didn't. The
also, it
inside-
doesn't factor into the total cost of the project
Mhm.
because it was a source.
so,
And Cheryl might be able to answer that better when she gets up here.
Yeah.
okay, I'll say
Okay.
Right.
maybe I'll ask you, Cheryl. when you
And
get
I believe the appraisal for this parcel was just under 500,000 at the time.
there. Okay, thank you.
Okay, excellent. Any additional questions? From Hannah, yep. And if not, I'll go ahead and we will pop, and Matt, are you good? Do you have any questions?
Yes, I'm good for now.
We'll pop, Gail Schwartz over to panelist. I see her hand is up. She is ready to chat. We'll have Cheryl come on up. If you guys could both introduce yourselves, name and if you live in city limits.
Okay. I'm Cheryl Bauer. I'm COO with Habitat Roaring Fork, and I do live on Grand Avenue in the city.
Great, awesome. And then on panelist, we'll just go ahead and turn on Gail Schwartz's mic. There she is. Hello. Do you want to unmute yourself, Gail?
Thank you. Got it.
Thank you.
We've got you.
Yeah. You look so put together. I would be in my pajamas personally, but
Hey,
you look great. Okay, great. You guys have heard our questions. Why don't we give you a couple minutes to kind of explain or, kind of respond to them?
Gail, do you want me to start?
please.
Hannah did a good job of covering this stuff. The bottom line for us was we went from doing 18 units to be able to spread those costs over 18 units with Iddings and then the 8 units at Confluence down to 6 units. So that rose all our prices, not to mention the fact that over the last 2 years, just prices have gone up. So our gap has grown considerably as to how much it costs us to actually build these things and what we can sell them for. And then another factor we're dealing with is that we no longer have access to these 2.5% mortgages that we used to offer.
Okay.
So now that even makes our gap bigger because we have to charge less for the homes. So, so with that, we had asked the council to consider a couple of these things. We, increase the number of priorities so that we can help. And all this goes back to helping us fill that gap, helping us to pay for, what it takes us to build and what we can actually sell for. Raise it to 4, that helps us reduce the gap. With the AMI, as Hannah said, we were allowed to go up to 100% on some of the units over at Iddings. We'd like to transfer some of that over to the Confluence. Not so much that we're going to be looking to try to sell them all to people at 100%, but we wanted to open it up, make it a little bit more income diverse and open it up more to members of the community who fit into that above 80% range. And so that on the gap question, so yes, so when we were figuring out our numbers, we did take into consideration the land. So what we're actually telling you, the gap is smaller for the city because of the land. Because we took the land out of we put the land into the calculation, and then we figure that as part of the gap when we went to the city.
For everyone though, it reduces the gap for
It
everybody.
does.
who
It does.
invests.
So
okay.
all the taxpayers, everybody, they get a little bit of that.
Okay, there's no additional benefit to the city, either from a 2C perspective or if we were to purchase them for our employees, correct?
Not
think
really,
that's the
unless Gail,
clarity.
you have a different.
Okay, and that's fine. I think there was a question about that.
Yeah.
To clarify. Okay. Okay. Excellent, thank you.
Okay, what other questions?
Counselor Schechter, question.
Should we choose to exercise any of the priorities, are we and you have 150,000 as the current price. Is that firm estimated still based on future costs? What,
Well, right now, so our gap is actually 221,000. So if we were just going, yes, for each unit. And so if we were actually going to say, come back to the city, we'd be asking you for like,
220?
well, we'd be asking, if you wanted 2 units, we'd be asking you for 340,000 as opposed to the 300,000 that we're asking you for.
Right, so we're talking just 2-bedroom units then?
No, 2 and 3. If you were gonna have a 2.
The
if you were gonna
gap
take a
on
2
3 bedrooms even higher.
Well, so when we were in the original MOU, we were to spread that gap over all the units. So we're saying it's 221 for each regardless if it's a 2-bedroom or if it's a 3-bedroom. Now, if we were gonna actually look at it, you know, each individual unit based on the number of bedrooms, we're talking about a $350,000 gap for the 3 bedrooms.
So if you're using, so let me clarify, you're using 221 across the board?
Yes, that's so.
For the preference units
Um,
or any of them?
So just taking the number it's costing us to build it minus what we can sell it for, spread over 6 units, it's 221,000 a
Okay.
unit.
So let me just be a little picky. You want 150, but our fee waivers are estimated to be 120. Why wouldn't we be paying you $121 per unit instead of 150 if the original intent was for us to get full credit for our waivers?
Why? Well, we thought we would give you a little bit of an incentive to go for 2, so we reduced the price on 2 for you.
That doesn't mathematically figure to me, but I mean, anyway, I'm just,
So it would be, it's about $100,000 in fee waivers that you're giving us. So there's still a gap there that you would need to fill if you were going to go with a 2-bedroom. Now, if you're going to go with a 3-bedroom, but we weren't supposed to, based on the MOU, look at them individually. We're supposed to look at them as a.
That's what I thought.
we kind of rounded up.
Yeah. And to clarify, it says that you are, and increase the cost of a priority unit to 150 for the first unit and decrease to 150 for the second. So you've leveled the playing field. You're saying 150,000 per. We've already committed to 108, correct? So there's $192,000 discrepancy. That's what you're asking
For
us
two.
in order for us to get 2 commitments. I think that's what I'm hearing. Let's just all be on the same page.
Yeah, kind of. I follow up to my question, Chuck. Could you kind of give us, to the extent you can, I know there's been some diversion with L3 and with the factory and rifle, but I know there was a targeted fundraising locally just for the confluence. What's happened with that and where does that figure into the gap?
I'll turn that over to Gail.
Yeah.
And well, thank you. And my apology, there was a rock slide on I-70 and I'm not there. So my apology for that. But no, you're absolutely right that we bring to the table other grants, we bring fundraising. And so we, on top of this priority system, the ability to sell to individuals, we also bring to the table other resources. And I will say that there was a little shift in terms of our personnel, so to speak. We had a contract fundraiser and we didn't have a robust fundraising effort associated with the project. We expected 1.2 million and we actually ended up with about 300,000. So this is where we're continuing to fundraise. We're continuing to pursue grants. We're continuing to bring our efforts to the table. But just to be totally transparent, that there was a shortfall there on the fundraising side. Love the community to step up. The city of Glenwood Springs is really a model for providing an opportunity to provide land and to build these 6 homes, which will serve your community indefinitely as deed restricted. So I hope that Councilman does answer your question to some degree.
Some degree, thank you.
Counselor Zelinski.
So yeah, I'm getting hung up, so forgive me. I get that this is in our community, so this will serve our community members. And so I do understand the value of that. But with the land and then the fee waivers, it does feel like we've been good partners in this. And so I'm still trying to rationalize being asked to contribute more or having other entities have the same benefit without having to contribute as much. You know, that land thing, you know, in our community, that has been tough conversations to have with people and hard to rationalize and justify. And so I think that needs to be recognized as that was a significant contribution to the project. And I would like that to be taken into consideration.
Okay, so let's do this. Let's wrap up questions. And I appreciate that. I'm sure you could have wrapped that into a question, but there.
Yeah, no, it was more of just a, like, I'm
Okay,
just
so-
trying to figure out why that's
hold-
not
okay.
being like factored
Yeah.
into, like, looking
So-
at all the numbers here. I'm like, that is just, that's not part
Okay.
of these numbers.
So let's pause for a minute on comments. Yeah, does anybody have any additional questions at this time? Questions, then we'll do some community questions and then we'll come back to comments and move on. Counselor Schachter.
So related to Counselor Zelinski, a question, if I understood you correctly, should there be other priority participants? Am I correct in saying that their cost would be 231 and 397 for a 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom to fully fund the gap?
You want to talk about priorities, Gail? Gail?
I think you guys are doing what you would normally do if she was standing next to you, is whisper over, hey, Gail, do you want to talk about that? But I don't think she heard you.
So what are we charging for the gap for other priorities is the question.
150,000. We did 100,000 in Wapiti. And those went to Alpine Bank, the city of Glenwood Springs, and to Garfield County. So there were 5, and they were at $100,000. And then we switched because of the cost associated with L3 to 150,000, and we have sold 20 of those. And so the school district was a little less. They came in early. They came in for 10 priorities. So it is a scenario whereby Habitat bid on 2 parcels that the city of Glenwood Springs put up to BidNet for development. We were the only bid, and the only reason we bid on that is because our starting point is free land. Free land with the school district, free land from donations. We're not in a position of compensating landowners because that only comes out through the cost to the eventual users. When you're building for $300-400 a square foot, but selling for $200 a square foot, that gap has to be made up someplace. And what we've come up with is the concept of priorities, but it also moving and in aligning. When we talked about 80 to 100% AMI households between what was going to be up to 20 units, and now we're talking about 6, and we actually had to redesign the parcel because the wrong parcel had been identified for us. The costs have been significant. So what we're trying to do is say, we have the opportunity to create 6 permanent homeowners that will be part of the Glenwood Springs community. And partnering with the city of Glenwood Springs is extraordinary. And when you look at what the need is for not only the government services and other services, but also local businesses, that if we can provide to those buyers at 100%, the reason we put forward 375 as the average, we're actually reducing that to 350 because of the loans we have available right now as primarily through USDA. That's a 4.3% loan. We don't have a 2.5% loan any longer through IDEA. So we have to we have to back into that price based upon the financing we have available. So we're backing into those purchase prices based upon up to 100% AMI. So I guess that's a very complicated answer, kind of revisiting when we came together over 2 years ago to create an opportunity for up to 20 households. We had done the land planning, we had done the environmental studies, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Now we had to redesign the project for a 6-unit project. So you can understand that we're working together on to make this possible for 6 beautiful homes in a obviously a very tight site that I think the community will be very proud of. And we've complied. We haven't asked for variances on density. We haven't asked for variances on your code to very limited extents. And so we're really trying to provide something that the community will be proud of long-term.
So let me ask a question. And I think what I'm hearing up here is that we need some clarity. I think that we're wanting earlier in all of these dialogues, you were talking to us because we had a tax revenue based through 2C. And that money allowed us to appropriate funds to affordable housing that wasn't specifically for our employees. But I think that these two, we have the option potentially of doing 2C. But I'm thinking that if we were to do these specifically for City of Glenwood employees, I think we're wanting the apples to apples approach. And meaning that if any other entity was purchasing these for their employees, are we paying more than everyone else is? And I think that is truly what we need to glean from your numbers.
I think if you go back, 2C wasn't in existence when we bid on the project in 22. And those funds weren't available. It was just a parcel for development. Yeah. And through that MOU process, we talked about coming in with some subsidy. And at that time, probably the subsidy on the gap funding got us a lot closer than we are today. And so I think that when you look at the benefit you're providing overall to the community, yes, a small business can't buy a unit for $150,000, but they sure can provide a beautiful home for a 2 or 3 bedroom home for an employee with 150, and that would be in perpetuity. And that's why we're trying to not tie it to people's jobs, but create a larger pool. And I thank Hannah for bringing that concept forward, because tying people's homes to their jobs is not one of our goals, certainly going forward.
And I don't think that's my question. I appreciate that. But I think what I'm looking for is, you went back in time and you said, when we originally gave the lands to you, we didn't have 2C. But subsequently, I could go back in time and say, we've given you millions, and that's not an exaggeration. We have given you millions since then. So what I'm saying now is, if we laid it out and we talk priority, what is apples to apples? And is this ask more than what any other employer would pay? Because at this point, we're running a business called the City of Glenwood, and the City of Glenwood has to be absolutely fiscally responsible for the money that we appropriate. And it wouldn't really feel fair if we end up paying more. Does that make sense?
So if I'm wondering, Gail, if you don't mind, if I'm understanding, you're saying, well, we're giving you $100,000 in fees, so shouldn't we only be paying 50 for this first priority and the 150 for the second? Is that what you're basically saying?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
I think that the fee waivers, and again, all this goes back in time, was originally a concept that, again, we applied to DOLA. We got a grant that made it a wash for the city to provide the fee waivers. And so that was more or less a pass-through. And so what when it comes to affordable housing, the fact that we can't charge market rate, that when the city steps up with fees, and I think you've done that, waive fees on other affordable projects as well, like the recent Catholic Charities project. I think that that's the partnership, and it is almost looking at a separate chart of accounts, because are we extraordinarily grateful that we were to partner with the city of Glenwood Springs to make L3 happen? 88 new homeowners, you bet. There's just no two ways about it. This has been an extraordinary example, not only for ourselves, but for the state. So I think, and again, up to the governor's office, recognize what's happened here. But again, we've got to get these 6 units across the finish line, and being able to find the resources that we need to be able to charge $325 and $375 for these homes, what it will take for us to finish this project and get it affordable to folks. You are absolutely asking the right question. Where's the equity in terms of the city's investment and other people's investment and Habitat's investment?
Counselor Godus.
Hi, thanks. So help me with the math a little bit, Cheryl or Gail. So you say the actual gap for a 2-bedroom is 231 for a 2-bedroom and 397 for a 3-bedroom. And so, but you're asking for 150 from us. So for example, or anybody else in this scenario, where does the extra $250,000 come from in the case of a 3-bedroom?
We have to raise it.
Yeah.
So when we talked about, because this is one of the topics we talked about when we were going through the IDINs in this property 2.5 years ago, was the fundraising component of it. How much have you fundraised so far for it?
300.
Okay, sorry, 300,000. What's the goal?
It was 1.2.
1.2, okay.
And we lost our fundraising consultant. So we're still working on that. We're still working on grants. We're still working on fundraising. And then the opportunity to have additional priorities, that's the equity that closes the deal.
Right, thanks.
Any additional questions? Okay, I'm going to open it up to public comment and or questions. Anybody here this evening in person to discuss this? Anybody here online to discuss this? Anybody who is out there in the world wanting 3 minutes to visit? Okay. Okay, I'm going to bring this back to council, and for the sake of time, I'm going to jam out a few of these with help from my fellow counselors. If we go into,
Can I ask one more question?
yeah. Oh, hold on one second. I also see other.
And this isn't about the financials, but Gail, you said something earlier that you said the wrong parcel was identified, and that's why it went from 8 to 6.
Let me get that.
Oh, sorry. I meant Counselor Hanlon.
There was a whole, if you recall, on this parcel A, parcel B, part was designated for right of way, part wasn't. During the course of development review on the initial pass through, a line on the survey got utilized that did not reflect that parcel boundary. And so as we got to final plans, we had to recognize that parcel boundary, and that along with really some other site constraints led to dropping 2 units from the project.
Okay,
And,
thanks. I did not remember that.
and re-engineering and redesigning
Yep.
and reconfiguring to get down to 6 units. So it was a substantial process and cost. That's what's added so much time and expense.
Okay,
Gotcha.
thank
Thank
you.
you.
I appreciate that. Counselor Schechter, did you have another question?
No,
Okay.
I'm ready for comments.
Okay.
That might save some time or not.
So the way I'd like to do this is that we have 5 things in front of us. And I think that we need to get through all of them. So I'd like to just go in order and then we can, unless, wow, Counselor Schechter's face is saying that he has strong feelings about this.
Separate them.
Well, I think some of them can absolutely be easily. I think item number one, removal of all mention of the Iddings property and mention of two.
That's
properties.
easy.
If I could look for
Yeah.
a motion to, yes,
And that actually was already handled in an amendment, so you guys
Okay.
don't need to change that.
okay, great.
I'm gonna take that one right away from you.
The Iddings property.
What's that?
What actions do we?
If you get to the staff report for this and you just, we need to update these 5 things. We need to make a decision. What's that?
Iddings has been done.
And
Iddings
that
has
is my
done. It's been done.
mistake that I included that.
Yeah,
It's just a
it is
reminder,
so
that's a
done.
change
Yep.
that we're going to clean up.
Number
with
two
the
hasn't
MOU.
been done?
Number 2
Um,
has not been done to reflect
Well-
6 units, not 8. Correct?
They've already applied for permit.
I will double check our amendment. Why don't you
Okay.
guys just vote on that one? It's
Okay, yep,
it's just a,
nice and clean.
something
So
that has
I'll
to
look
happen.
for an emotion on item number 2. Counselor
Number two?
Zelinski.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So I move that we update the description of the Eighth and Midland project to reflect the lower unit count of 6 units instead of the original 8.
okay, do I have, yep, Counselor Schachter.
Second?
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Okay, Counselor Schachter.
We're gonna go to number 3.
I think that number 3 is probably gonna be the longest one, so I'd like to look down and I'd like to look at item number 5. Because I think
Okay.
that one will be a very easy one, Tim. So, I'll look for a motion on number 5. Counselor Schachter.
Oh, I'm gonna withhold the motion. I'd
Okay,
rather-
Counselor Zelinski.
I would like to move that for the sale of the units, a qualified income is expanded on area median income from 80 to 100% AMI.
Okay, and a second. Counselor Gotis.
I'll second that.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No comment? No, you can't comment on
Okay,
that.
if you'd like to come, if people want to comment, they are more than welcome to. We'll pause on the voting then. Go ahead, Counselor Schachter.
Yeah, first of all, we have to tie A and B together. That's a procedural question. Because
and B.
item 5 had
There's-
2 parts to it.
Yeah, I think that back into the 100%. I was thinking about that too.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay.
you back into 375 at 100.
And again, my comment, I understand all the factors that lead to this. I would rather see an average of 90% or a cap as to how many can be 100%. Since one of the original goals was to keep that down. So whether it be an average or say that up to half can be above 80%, I'd be way more comfortable with. I don't know.
So what would that look like if someone were to make a motion?
The motion would be something hypothetically that expand the limit on area median income for up to half the units to 100% of AMI.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the table and we're having discussion. Does anybody else want to discuss this?
Possible.
I'm sorry, Gail, not at this time. Yeah. Okay, we'll go ahead and call that question then.
Would you repeat the question?
So at this point, we are going to expand the limit on area meeting income from 80 to 100% AMI. And that's the question. That's the motion.
Counselor Gotis.
Aye.
Counselor Zelinski. Mayor Wusso.
Yes?
Counselor Weimer. Counselor Schachter. Counselor Sims.
Yes.
It passes 4-2.
Okay, great. So we have now taken care of item 1, item 2, and item 5. That leaves item 3 and 4. Do we want to tackle one over the other or jump right in? Counselor Schachter.
I think they're kind of related.
Okay, great.
But item 5 might be easier. I don't know if we're going back door, but I would tackle number 3 first, I think, because it's pretty important.
Okay, so we'll go ahead and start a discussion on item number 5 and we'll discuss, or I'm sorry, number 3. Item number 3, and we'll start it with a discussion with a motion. So you want to put a motion on the table and then we'll discuss the motion and then we'll see if it's got weight to move it forward. So, Counselor Schechter. You're,
Well, regarding item number 3, fee waivers and city priorities, I would move that we approve an increase of the cost of a priority unit for the city of Glenwood Springs to $150,000, whether it's 1 or 2 at our option. That that gets into numbers. I'm kind of combining that
It's
any
okay.
other, and that any other priorities that are approved are at a price no less than 50% higher than the city's price. Maybe I'm
What does
convoluting
that
too much,
mean?
no?
May
All
I-
right,
may I
let me retract it.
Okay.
Yeah,
I would say, item number 3, I would move to approve the increased cost of a priority unit up to $150,000 for the first and or second unit for the city of Glenwood Springs, either 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom.
Okay, great. So I think that's in alignment with the applicant's request. That we kind of level the playing field. Priority is 150,000 regardless of 2 or 3 bedrooms. Do we have a second for that? Yeah,
I
great.
will second.
Counselor Zelinski is our second. So now
That
let's
way
go
we can-
ahead and open it up to discussion. Do you want to start with discussion? But I need your mic on. Thank you. Counselor Zelinski.
I don't know that I'm ready to start the discussion. My thoughts are, I think it's reasonable to ask for the increase. Because we're only talking about the city's priorities. We really don't have discretion on how they sell their other priorities. So, I think that that's a fair ask. I have more thoughts when we get to item 4.
Okay, great. Counselor Weimer.
So I think where my head is at is that the city has been, we have come to the table with respect to this project, substantially so, right? So we're in it for 620 right now, 610, 620, somewhere around in there. We've done a good job, in my opinion, of supporting this project and of helping Habitat get to a really good starting point to where they could then go out and do what they do best, and get, 6 quality housing units up and running. In addition to that, you think about the L3, right? And where are we at? 3 million on that right now?
Yeah, we're at 1.5 million
And
from
another 1.5
QC
loaned?
and 1.5 loaned.
Right,
In
and so,
total, 20 units, is that correct? 20 units thus far?
something like that.
So
I
you're,
think. Quarter of the way there.
No,
no,
Priorities, I think that was.
priorities, 20 priorities. Okay, great, thank you.
So I
Thank
just-
you for clarifying.
Yeah, I just feel like, the city has stepped up. And I think we've done appropriate work on this already. I think in the last 2 years, especially as half of us have come onto council, we've learned a lot about the context of this project and neighborhood sentiment, and this project's not up for vote. Let's not get that confused, but I think just that, helping pull together how the community feels about the city's role in this project already, and that we've, and that we may not even be getting full credit for what we feel like we've already donated or contributed to the project. My head is at, that we try to, it's not walk away, but I think we've done what we needed to do, what we need to have done for this project. And we feel good about that, and we focus on other priorities as they arise, and allow Habitat to to continue on their way without any sort of us getting in the way around priority units, how many they're allowed. You know, it's like, good luck, God bless, and, you know, do what you need to do to get this project sold. And I don't feel like I have the appetite to add any more money to this mix.
So you're a no on the motion on the table.
I'm a no for the motion on the table.
Great, okay. Counselor Schechter.
Well, I made the motion to get the discussion.
Mhm.
And I have mixed feelings. I agree with Counselor Weimer. We have put a ton on the table. And we should separate it from what happened at L3, which is hard to do because that's a phenomenal windfall that rarely occurs. We also have to keep in mind that no matter what happens, whether we get a priority or not, it does not guarantee us workforce housing in perpetuity. It guarantees deed restricted, low-cost housing in perpetuity. Given that, and given that we were going to get one priority unit for our current contributions, I'd be more inclined to request the MOU to be adjusted, that we get one priority unit. And I don't care if it, and to keep cost down, if it's a 2-bedroom, fine. If that's designated, I have no problem saying the second one could cost $150,000. I don't want us to pay the price for inadequate or shortfalls of fundraising because of dilution of efforts, or I don't want us to be subsidizing other employers as well that may take advantage of our largesse. So I'd be more comfortable with kind of a mixed proposal. We get one, albeit a 2-bedroom, if that's going to help the cost. And if we choose to do another one, it'd be at the fixed costs. That's where I am right now. So kind of.
Okay, I'm gonna jump in and hang tight with me while I do a little bit of math in front of you all. So, right now, if you read in our staff report, it says that the city, and this is in item number 3, the city agreed to waive all system improvement fees and building permit fees, which are estimated between 100,000 and 120. So big picture, what I'm estimating on 6 units is that's about 20,000 per unit, right? We are currently committed to 108,000. That's what we've already committed, right? Previous priority unit cost estimates were around 108,000. So that's kind of what we've already committed to. Is that correct?
So the MOU committed us to being able to execute a priority with the fee waivers and whatever else. So
Yeah.
it hasn't been committed yet.
Yeah,
But if you
But-
want the
but-
priority,
sure.
108 was the previous estimate we have from Habitat.
And that's
9 months
incorporating,
ago.
yeah, and that's incorporating the fee reduction. So the way I'm kind of doing the math is that the ask on the table is $300,000. If we take this 20,000 fee reduction per unit, that gets us, and we took it out because we've already committed to it, and that's what the cost already is to us. That leaves $260,000. That's the ask really in total, which minus the 108 from the commitment that we already kind of verbally agreed to, leaves $152,000 on the table. And that would be, in my mind, a fair and equitable apples to apples approach to getting to. That says we're calculating in our fee reduction. But here's my one caveat. I would like to hear from Steve Boyd, our city manager, if you feel like there's a need, if you feel like the city is keeping up with other employers in the valley saying we are housing our employees, do you think this is something that you feel like is a worthwhile investment to be able to push for 2 of these to try to, and this is me using that math of saying like, we bump it and we give you, we've already committed to 108. We commit another 152, but with that, we want 2 priorities. What do you think? Give us your thoughts on that.
Well, my thoughts are that we have not kept up with what other large employers are doing. We're a little bit behind that curve. We have 15 priority units in the lofts in L3 already. So that gets us a good start there.
Yeah.
I think that if you guys want to do this, we can afford to do it because we've been piling up money in, our A&I fund. And anticipation of Southbridge and other things. So from a financial perspective, I think you can do it, but I don't know if I can really weigh in on whether or not we need it.
Okay. Okay, that's great. Thank you. I appreciate that. Counselor Gotis.
Sorry, I'm trying to type down my thoughts. So I'm brief. We have 3 million that we committed for L3, correct? How much of that is a loan?
1.5.
1.5. Okay, so I don't really know how to get, I'm trying to do an apples to apples.
Yeah, thank you.
Um,
Yeah. And I'm open to somebody else's apples to apples. but
Well-
That's just where I got to.
And, you know, I struggle with, and I get the land is kind of the baseline. Hey, this is what it takes just to have the
Mhm.
conversation
Yeah.
on these things. I get that. But, you know, certainly the land cost has gone up, but let's, for the sake of argument, if that's 500,000 and we're being asked, you know, I just have to go back, regardless of what was committed by 5 people that aren't here at the time, because I think it's a new conversation we're having, right? That's part of this. I think, you know, I'm looking at 800,000 we've committed to get essentially, or are being asked to
Mhm.
come out to get 2 priority units for the city versus however, I guess you want to look at L3. And I kind of look at L3 as the 1.5 and not the 3 million because that is a loan. To me, that loan is like, I don't know, it helps get things started. It's a conversation starter, right? So if that's the case on those 15 units, then that's $300,000 a unit. No, it's 10, 100. Thanks.
Mhm.
It's been kind of a long day. It's $100,000 a unit that we committed to doing per unit for L3. If that's kind of the cost that every employer is being asked to do for a unit, and we're already conflating these 2
Mhm.
projects, and I get why, because similar place, similar time, similar whatever. I guess a more rational thing for me is, hey, it costs $100,000 to get a priority unit for the city. That seems like a fair conversation, a fair starting point for a conversation for me. And it's just me, and I think
Mhm.
we all think about these things different. I think the equity between us and any other employer has got to be the same, regardless of where we end up. But I guess I'm more of the, hey, if we want to stay at that $108,000, it's about $100,000. We get the 1 priority unit. I just get stuck in my craw a little bit. And this is maybe a philosophical thing about just all these large employers being able to vacuum up all these who have funds, vacuum up all these affordable housing units. Because our community is, the base of our community are places like Treads and Jimmy John's and small businesses that are going to be completely left out of the affordable housing conversation if we continue to go down that road. And that's why I think when we had 8 units, we're like no more than half
Mhm.
can have that priority. So I guess I'd be okay. I don't even know how I'm going to vote on that motion specifically. I'm all over the place, but I
Yeah.
think that 100,000 for 1 unit, so it's consistent with what we put in with L3 is good. And then another unit gets put in for the other community partners. So now there's 2 out of the 6. Kind of feels better to reserve those 4 for the larger community, which still might be a Valley View or Garfield County.
Sure.
I don't know.
I want to jump in really quickly with a couple points of clarification though, before I jump to Counselor Shakhtar, and that is that this is a different product. These are 2-bedroom apartments and 3-bedroom apartments. This is for community members who are going to walk their kids across the street to the elementary school in the morning. And so 100,000 over at L3 is a totally different beast here. And so I can see a bump in that. And I also, what's that?
This is a new bill.
Exactly. And yeah,
Yeah.
really that was too, but I can see paying more. But I still will go back to the apples to apples. If we've already committed to reducing to cover the system improvement fees, I think that should come off of our contribution for a priority. And I can't comfortably, I think that at this point, I'm not looking at these as community members, like opportunities for Glenwood employees. I'm comfortable saying, these are for city employees. These are for people who work for our organization. That's my comfort level. Counselor Schechter.
I need some help maybe from you, Madam Mayor, or from Carl. I'm looking back at the original memo of understanding, and I didn't see a Schedule E, but if I understand it said that if our contribution covered the estimated gap, there would be no additional cost. I'm missing something. And was there a gap of 108,000, or was it on the original one that our contribution of 100 to 120 would cover the gap? I'm confused when I'm reading
Yeah,
that.
I think that the original MOU doesn't specify a particular number, so I think you're reading that correctly, that the contribution was assumed to cover the gap.
For one unit.
For that our fee waiver would contribute towards that gap on
Right.
one or two, whatever.
Right.
At the time, I think the number was about 240,000 we were anticipating in fees. And so we assumed that would at least cover one unit fully. So that's kind of where we're at. I think philosophically for you guys, you're at, is that 150 the right number for a unit? And then how many units do you want? If you want it.
I just wanted to clarify that. Thank
I
you.
also want to point out, since we're in conversation, is that I heard Counselor Goda say, like, it's really nice to have them go to the general community. But the reality is that if we don't potentially step up, they may not be able to build. And I just want to put that on the table. And that is not because I've had conversation with the applicants. But the reality is that that's how they're getting to the finish line. The L3 didn't happen because a bunch of community members were like, yeah, great, this is all going to be deed restricted, we'll have our employees move in. It's because a lot of community members came to the table with money and said, we're willing to put our money where our mouth is, kind of thing.
Yeah.
Counselor Zelinski.
If I can just point out, I did pull up this is the original MOU language for those priorities, if you want to refer to it. And so it is that the city committed to waiving the fees and applying for the grant, but that we would waive the fees regardless if we got the grant. We got the grant partially. It was not what we asked for, but it was a partial grant. And then this is stating, as Carl mentioned, we will get one priority unit in exchange for meeting the financial gap. And it didn't stipulate what that is, so it kind of left it open, but that our fee waivers go towards that gap. Don't know if that clarified anything, but it's up there for you to read as well.
Yeah, so if I can just follow up on that, and to your point, Counselor Schachner, I think that if you, for argument's sake, if we accept a $150,000, that's the gap, or that's the subscription price or whatever you want to say, and our fee waivers are in the 120 range, that 30,000 is what the additional funds would be for that first unit, underneath the analysis in the original MOU.
Counselor Zelinski, are you good?
I am. I'm getting one more point of clarification. And I hope this is not an uncomfortable question, but so the way I'm understanding this is that the priority is like, that would go on top of the purchase price, correct? And that's why it's like an additional funding for its habitat. So you would still be able, you're going to sell the units for that price, regardless of if there was a priority behind it.
I think there's another document that I can show you that might be helpful from Habitat that shows kind of how they work this out. Give me one.
I'm sorry. I wasn't here for the first part, so I'm just trying to get
No,
caught
I
up,
completely understand. This is very challenging
Yeah.
Concepts to track well. So let me just pull
While
up.
she's pulling that up, Counselor Zelinski, if I can, I think what the base analysis is that the purchase price versus the build price creates a gap.
I got that.
And so the priority is buying into that gap.
Yep.
So the purchase price doesn't go up. It
Got
just goes to backfill.
That's why I was trying to understand like the purpose of priority and how that would minimize the access to potential purchasers. And you know, what that means basically for the project, kind of as a contributing to our community. And that's where I was I'm trying to just understand
Yeah, so
how
what I
all
wanted
these
to
factors.
pull up whether this clarifies or not.
Yeah.
The actual cost of development, 3-bedroom, actual cost of development, 2-bedroom. This is provided by Habitat. This is with the 80% AMI that the MOU currently has. So you can see their cost of development for a 3-bedroom at 720,000 minus the sales price. That's their new cost of development after the sale proceeds. That's basically their financial gap.
Got it.
And then they do that for the 2-bedroom as well. That might have been helpful for you guys to see in the beginning, but here it is now.
I know. Well, I appreciate it. Sorry. Hard having these conversations coming from behind.
Yeah.
All right.
I
Cool.
absolutely understand. It's hard having these conversations coming from the beginning.
I'm
Yeah.
gonna get Counselor Go to started why I do math.
So in this thing that's up here, Hannah, the actual cost of development for a 2-bedroom, it's 481 less 80% AMI, 325 is 156. So that there's, I get the 156 number. That gap, what? And now if we raise it, since we raised it up to 100%, that gap is smaller, presumably.
No,
No, go ahead, Gail. Sorry.
I don't know if this
Yeah,
is
go ahead.
inappropriate.
No,
But-
if you have
It's okay.
information to
Go
put
ahead
in.
and clarify. Yeah.
I'm interested.
No, the 80%, it's actually, the price stays the same. But because we don't have the 2.5% mortgages, the price will be the same for either 80 or 100% AMI. And
Okay.
this is the price because we have to back into it. So what we would do for an 80% household, probably a 100% household could qualify for those purchase prices.
Mhm.
But the 80%, we'd have to bring more down payment assistance to the table, home equity. I mean, we want to have 100% loans. And again, these are deed restricted in perpetuity for people working in the community. So it is workforce housing in perpetuity for the community, but the price is the price. We just have to bring more subsidies to the table for that 80% AMI household. But it'll either be 100% or an 80% household.
Thank you. That helped a lot. I appreciate you interrupting. You didn't interrupt. You interjected with new information.
Yeah.
Gail, while I have you, what happens if you're only at 300,000, but you need to get to 1.2 to make this go? What happens if you can't get to the other 900,000? Does this project not go regardless of what we do here tonight?
Well, we're going to do our level best. We have our contractors lined up. We have in the process of ordering the modular units. This going to 100% AMI households does help, because you can see we were able to increase the prices, and that we will just do everything we can if we have the flexibility to bring in more priorities, regardless of where the city comes in. That helps us bring down that gap.
And so I'm wondering, I guess, are we making up that funding gap? That was the 1.2 that was going to be fundraised from the community. Is that part of what we're closing the gap on by increasing our priority units and allowing other priority units to be sold?
Yes, I would just say that is the alternative way for us to arrive at being able to break even on the project. I mean, and be able to sell at these prices for these 2 and 3 bedroom homes.
Gotcha. Okay, thanks.
I'd like to put something on the table and kind of see how it resonates with a few of you, is that what if we took a little bit of you and a little bit of you, and that what if we reduced to one priority, but what if we removed the requirement that that they can only sell priorities in the same amount that the city does them? What if we remove that, take that off the table, we only do one, and that allows them, that opens up to do other priorities without limitation?
What do you mean other priorities without limitation?
So right now, if you read number
Right.
4, it's saying that it's a 1-to-1. If
Right.
the city does two, then they can do two priorities. But if the city only does one, they can only do one priority. It would make the project more like financially viable
If they could do four.
if they could,
regardless.
yeah, if we removed that, exactly. If we removed that and we just stuck to just purchasing one. I'd like to get feedback, so I'll do it based on the mics. We'll start with Counselor Shachter, then on to one.
I have no problem probably with them getting four or maybe even more. We got to look at some of the implications for that perhaps, but I'm still having a little trouble with us subsidizing the priorities, that they're the same as ours. And I don't know how to resolve that here.
Mhm,
I'm
mhm.
still open to listening, but that one, letting them have four, letting them have five, we're accomplishing the fact that at least initially, we're getting workforce housing and affordable housing. That's critical. If we want one
Yeah,
from A&I, that helps. But I have a problem that somebody else can step up that has brought nothing to the table and will get the same priority, knowing there's a huge gap that we do. And I'm not sure how to resolve that. I'd like to see a resolution.
someone, you mean an employer?
Yeah, if we say, we're gonna take one and you can have four, you can have six,
Mhm.
whatever.
But they
that-
have to pay
they
hundred
have
and
to-
fifty.
Yeah, well, they're paying what we're paying.
Yeah,
That
but-
I have a trouble with. That I
so
have trouble with.
we're kicking in approximately 20,000 per unit in fee waivers, which is what we did for Catholic Charities, which is what we've done for other organizations, and it's a priority for us to do
But now
attainable
we're
housing.
kicking in another 150 and they're not
Not
kicking in anymore.
necessarily. No, we've already agreed to do one.
Well,
We've agreed to
that's
go.
not what the new MOU says.
Okay,
That's my understanding, that the
Okay.
new MOU, if you're saying we get one at no additional cost, that's a
Mhm.
different story. The new MOU doesn't say that.
it says
It-
150,
Yeah, that's
And
what I'm
which
trying
is-
to clarify.
but so you're saying you would be comfortable doing it at 130?
No, what I'm saying is, what I'm initially saying is, if we get the MOU for what we've put in,
Mm-hmm.
that's great. Then I'm more comfortable with the others paying 150. But if we're getting the MOU for 150 on top of what we've already put
Mhm.
in, I am not comfortable with the others getting a priority for a 150.
Okay, okay,
I would expect a premium there.
Counselor.
So I don't know which way you're going.
Well, I think where I'm going with this is that we're in a unique position and that we have the ability to waive fees. Yes, we did. We're also in a unique position in that we have a 30,000-foot view and a fiscal responsibility to encourage and support through our tax base. This isn't money we're making. This is us collecting taxes and appropriating it out into the community. We're in a position to support employees and having housing, which aligns with one of our biggest priorities in comp plan and all these, council goals and all of these different venues that we use to make good decisions for the community. We have consistently said affordable housing is something that we want to invest in. And so here's an opportunity. Yes, we donated the land. And so too have other organizations donated land. And so I see this need, I've been saying it all night, of apples to apples. But what I'm getting to is that if we removed the requirement for the match, the 1-to-1 priority, that opens it up where they can talk to other employers and they could find other employers who are willing to come up with 150,000. They could do the remaining 5 if they wanted to, without a limitation. Hold on. But I am comfortable committing even 150,000 in this simply to move it and get it moving on to getting it to come to fruition. Do you have any more comments on
So I
that,
want to
questions?
clarify because I
Okay.
wasn't sure what you were saying. You're not saying that we get one priority unit at no additional cost. You're saying you're comfortable up to 150.
Up to 150 for one unit. That's
So
what
then I'm
comfortable.
asking you, are you then comfortable are you then comfortable with other priority units at the same price, or should they pay more since we have
Yeah, I also want to make it
to close that?
sustainable.
Because that
And-
helps Habitat.
Yeah.
Point of interest,
Mhm.
we have a motion.
Do we?
No,
We have a motion.
We have a motion.
Hold on one second.
Wait, I think the proper, as former Counselor Charlie Willman would say, I think you're trying to do an alternative main motion to get consensus. I get it.
Yeah.
But I think other people maybe have different ideas of what they want to do. So I guess I would ask that maybe we can go through and
Okay.
hear
so
about this, because
That was the goal, but we've gotten sidetracked down here. So
Yes.
let us wrap this up and then we'll get it to you guys. And I think in fact, you'll have better clarity by the time it gets to you. So, I think you know where I'm
Withdrawing the
coming
motion?
from.
Yes.
No,
Yes.
keep your motion. Counselor Weimer.
So what are we talking?
there's a motion.
There's
Can you
a
repeat your motion, Sumner? Because that's what we're actually supposed to be talking about.
I don't remember. Ryan, can you repeat the motion?
Yeah, it was to approve an increase for priority units to 150,000 for two or three bedrooms.
For Glenwood Springs.
Or Glenwood Springs.
So that was what I was talking
So I would
Counselor
say,
Weimer.
so I would say that if that's the context,
Mhm.
right? I would support that, right?
You wouldn't?
No, I would.
Okay.
Doesn't mean that we're buying any of them. I just, that's the economics of
Yeah.
the project, right?
Mhm.
Like new number is 150, right? And so, all right, the new number is 150, right? And then the second question is, how many of the 150s do you want to buy, right? And that's a whole kind of separate
Yeah.
conversation. And I think a little bit of it is this whole confusion around like apples to apple. We're not going to get apples to apples because we're approaching this as two almost separate, two different entities. The first entity was us as a municipality trying to do really good things for a really good project with 2C money, right? Let's give them the land, that lowers the bar for everybody. Let's waive the fees, that lowers the bar for everybody. That's really good stuff. We can't do that and expect return on that. That's not ROI, right? That is do-gooder 101, right? And then these guys go off and they run the project and they crunch the numbers and hopefully they make it work. Well, they're not making it work. And so now they're coming back to us and they're saying, these numbers need to be a little bit higher. That doesn't cost us anything. It's just, we're just updating the memorandum, right? And so the new numbers are 150 and blah, blah, blah. So we just have to approve. Are those new numbers? Do we agree that those are the new numbers? Why would we disagree? They're the ones with the calculators, right? And then the question is, do you want, what does it take to put you in this car today, right?
Yeah.
And that's where the conversation, no, oh yeah, we'll take four. What? And then part and parcel of that is updating the MOU to say, we will release those other units to allow for priorities, because before we had tamped down on those things, economics have changed, right? Let's lift that, go forward, sell as many of those priorities, Gail, as you can, right? Like, we're not going to get in your way. That still doesn't answer the question, how many of those priorities do you want? Right? And so like that's, so I would say, if the motion is, do we agree to raise that to 150? Let's vote on that, right? And then let's have this whole other conversation about how many of the 150s do we want?
So where I was going is I don't think when you're trying to say, I think I'm trying to split the difference between you and Summer. I don't think we should do any more priorities. I think we should do less priorities, because it feels to me that, and again, this is why we're having this long conversation. There's only two of us here that had it, but when we were told we're going to raise for this project 1.2 million from the community, yes, the numbers have changed, but part of that is recognized and taking it from 80% to 100% AMI. Part of that is some of the other things that we're talking about doing, the minor stuff, 1 and 6 and all that. So that accommodates part of it. I think, I struggle a little bit with, we'll raise 1.2 million from the community. We didn't do that. So now we're asking the city to come back and make up that gap. Which
is a separate which is the separate, or the second vote, right?
No, I think this is,
Sorry.
No,
keep
not
going.
that is- No, you're not. You're good. Keep going.
okay. But, and I think it's, that to me is part of it, is if we're gonna be coming up, if we're going to have to make up a promise of 1.2 million was gonna be raised in the community and now it can't be. I don't know that, that's not an economic condition that's changed because of inflation or interest rates. It's a condition that's changed because the promise of the applicant has not come through. I think that I'm a little, I don't want to be, again, selling to the highest bidder because the small businesses in our community can't come up with $150,000 to fund that gap. So these will only, if you say all 6 of them get sold to whoever, Valley View is going to buy the other 5. They got, well, but then why did we donate $500,000 of prime land in our downtown so Valley View can have subsidized housing on the Glenwood City Springs citizens taxpayers back? Valley View has $400 million. If they want to do that,
Yeah.
hold on, if they want to do that, they can do that. If Holy Cross wants to do that, the school did, they can do that. But since we already have $500,000 of land into it, I think it does need to be kept to the community as much as possible. So if the compromise is $150,000 for one, and we allow them to sell an additional one, and that money doesn't come out of A&I, because I don't think that's what A&I is for, but if we could figure that out and have that conversation, then I think that's a path forward for me. I'm not trying to bring everybody together. I'm just saying that's a path forward for me to kind of get there.
Okay, awesome.
Could-
Counselor Zelinski,
Could
no,
you repeat
hold,
that?
oh, wait, that,
Just for clarity,
okay, great.
what's
Go
the
ahead.
path forward?
The path forward for me would be, I would compromise and go up to 150,000. Because I think your point about, I didn't have my
2
mic on.
bedrooms and 3 bedrooms.
New construction versus L3, like that's the great thing. I was mistaken. I want to retract that. So I think that makes sense. And if we do 1 priority unit and allow them to sell an additional 1 private unit, that kind of honors the 2 for us, 2 for somebody else, but then there's 4 left for the community. That feels okay to me, that I can get there. I also think that this is not what A&I is for. So I would prefer that we have a conversation separate of those 2 things about where that funding actually comes from, but that's slightly smaller.
Okay, I've got Counselor Sims, we'll have Counselor Zelinski, then we'll have you go last, Sims, okay? Counselor Zelinski.
Sorry, I just was wondering how I got skipped over because I thought that we were going
was-
down the line. So that's
No,
why I was like, what
Yeah, no,
happened?
it was straight up the mics.
Anyway, point of clarification, I think for Sumner, we were always going to pay for a priority. The fee waivers weren't going to cover it.
That was
Is
my
that correct?
That was my.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, and so it was estimated that it was gonna cost us 108, now it's 150, so it's only a $32,000 increase. Just a point of clarification. So that, and then, kind of going back to what we're talking about here. I agree with some of your points. As a former small business owner, I know I always struggled to try and keep up with the benefits that some of the bigger employers could provide. And so I do think that's something that we really have a responsibility to keep in mind. I'm thinking about the half and half. If they could sell, we take 1 priority, they can sell 2, we leave 3. That feels like maybe a possible conversation. I know that's item number 4 that we have to talk about yet, but just kind of in this greater philosophical conversation. But I wanted to make that clarification for Sumner, and I think that increasing this to that 150 makes sense based on what we know about. We're still getting, I think, a screaming deal. So that was all I had to say.
Counselor Sims.
Is it, maybe I need this clarification. It's 150 on top of the $108,000 in fee waivers, or is that what no.
No, years ago, when we made the agreement, we said at that time, it was estimated that a priority was 108,000. And at that time, that was the agreement. Now they're coming to us and they say have costs, and we all would probably agree, costs have come up.
Sure.
And so now the request is to be able to increase that to 150,000. Okay.
So
Okay. And then did I hear Steve say that he didn't think we needed any more priorities right now?
No, Steve, do you want to reiterate or do you want me to? Okay. Steve said that he felt that the city probably, it would probably be a fair statement that the city has not kept up on purchasing employee housing to the degree that other large
Sure.
employers have. However, it's really an assessment of council as to whether or not we want to invest in employee housing right now and
Sure.
from what fund.
Okay. All right.
and I'm going to jump in for one last clarification so that
Thank
we
you.
can all have one.
I do
Um,
love a clarification.
I just wanted to be clear, the 108,000 was a
Mhm.
discussion that has come up after we've gotten through entitlements. It was not part of the MOU discussion at all. It wasn't confirmed. What is confirmed from the MOU currently is that we would provide in some form with fee waivers as well to match the financial gap, whatever it ended up being.
Mhm.
Steve and Habitat and myself started these discussions of what that actually looked like when they got closer to actually, knowing what their construction costs are, which was approximately maybe, let's say 9 months ago. And we've been talking about that since. And so this is a new number from when that discussion started, after they've done all the designing and the engineering to actually get to that number. But it wasn't a commitment. The 108 was not a commitment, other than the fact that we had committed to funding the gap if we wanted a priority unit. And they started the conversation a while back with 108 was that gap.
Okay, great. Thank you. May I ask a question to Gail? I don't want to, I want to hear what Jonathan suggested, and that is to allow the community on a whole, employers, to be able to purchase these. But what was the success in even getting 100,000 over at L3 from anybody but the large employers?
So I think the irony is, and I really looked and trying to speak to, because you all are very sensitive to this issue. We approached RAPTA, CMC, the hospital. They declined to participate in any way in L3. So all the 20 priorities were sold to one local business and to other local governments, the fire department, the school district, other entities. I find it sort of ironic. We are going to go forward to all the chambers and talk about the opportunity. There are a handful of L3 that would still be available, even a small business. So this small business owner bought one because he knew he couldn't buy a unit for that. And he could always be assured of having his restaurant manager. So I think that ironically, the big guys, the big dogs, chose not to participate. And yet it is the smaller employers, the Main Street employers, that are struggling. And as I said, the fire department or the school district, I think their appetite is done. Even the county employees, they still need to have housing because they can't compete against CMC buying units up or the hospital buying units up and RAPTA doing converting buildings. They were not interested in participating with us.
Okay.
I think it's ironic.
Thank you. Thank you for that. That was just, I wanted to kind of add that into the discussion. So, Councilor Weimer, your light is lit up. Was there anything that you wanted to add to this? And otherwise, I really do think we could probably, we've got a motion, we've had some discussion. Sure. Yep.
Thank you. I always like the opportunity to possibly compromise with my counselor down there. One thing, if I understand it, if we say we're going to do one priority at 150 and authorize another priority, there's nothing that prohibits Habitat from raising the price of that priority if they have a funding gap. We don't have to set this price necessarily of the second priority should we not take it. That's one thing. And the other thing is I just wanted to clarify before I vote on this motion, we're amending the MOU. Are we still dealing with the full item of sale of units? Because I didn't notice on the new MOU, and it is related, who the priorities, does that change at all in terms of employed within city limits, first priority, buyers employed within 81601?
No.
I didn't see that in the second one. Does that stay?
Yeah.
Okay, all right. Thank you. That's all I have.
Would you guys entertain me really quickly and just say, if it was up to you, just to you, you didn't have to try to navigate with everybody else at the table, what you would do in this situation? And
Yeah.
like, yeah,
Coming down?
yeah, coming down. And this time, Aaron, we'll do it in order. Promise. With
I-
Matt, you're last.
Which way, where are we starting?
You. Mhm.
Always last.
I would, at this point, I would approve one priority unit for us at 150, authorizing a second one at whatever Habitat wants to do with it.
Mhm.
And I like the idea that other employers can step up, maybe not the big boys and girls.
Mhm.
That's where I'm right. As long as the clarification we just got for item 6 stays intact.
Counselor Weimer.
I will support the 150.
Mhm.
If there's 2C money, I support the purchase of a priority at a single purchase, a single priority at 150. And I don't know that I care after
Okay.
that.
Okay.
I don't know what, I still haven't connected priorities with small businesses
Mhm.
and how, if we don't do priorities, then I don't understand how priorities and small businesses, how that goes together. So outside of our one priority, I don't know that we should be involved.
Okay.
Like, we've done our bit, let's get a unit and allow them to go on and do good things.
Okay. Thank you. I would, if it was just up to me tonight, I would purchase 2 priorities, but have them both be discounted to reflect the reduction in system improvements. I would eliminate the requirement for the matching. I would open up all 6 if people wanted to make them priorities. And I would absolutely allow, because of what I'm hearing, the big guys are gonna go and they're gonna build their own things. This would allow SGM to say, 2 of our engineers or 2 people who work for SGM can, and these are all, I just want you guys to know, there are no commitments. There are no companies that have stepped up. We just use examples to make it seem more real. It would allow them to say, we have a place for our employees as they cycle and they move in and out of the valley. So remove the requirement on priorities, bump it to 150. And I would have us be able to have 2 of those, remaining 4 go to whoever. Counselor Zelinski.
So my understanding of the priorities is that priority remains in perpetuity. So my only like reservation with like letting the priorities be limitless is that in perpetuity, whoever bought that priority, their staff is gonna have housing where other businesses coming and going may not.
Yeah.
So that I personally, the 150, I think we should do it. 1 or 2, I kind of leave that up to a different conversation. I think that comes down to what we can afford. We've committed quite a bit of money. We've spent a lot of our 2C money. I don't know if that makes sense for us to buy more than 1 of them. I think maybe 1 priority might be sufficient. And then I would say that in having this greater conversation, I think up to 4 priorities being sold makes sense, and leave 2 to be out there and like function as intended, because that does still open that inventory up to people. We never know what's going to happen down the road. We don't know what businesses are going to come and go. I think that feels that equitable word for me.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Counselor Godus.
Yeah, thanks. It's good hearing kind of everybody go down the line. So I think I'm still at the 1 priority for us, 1 priority for any other business. Sumner, I'm 100% agreement. If your actual motion goes down because you vote against it, I would actually make that motion exactly how you said it. 1 priority, for us, one priority for whoever else, whatever else they want to pay, whatever Habitat can get, extract, whatever. And then the 150 comes from the 108,000 fee waivers and the remainder of 2C, or just all 2C. Or heck, it's 32,000 general fund, you know, if that makes us feel better about it. Alternatively, so I think that's great. Alternatively, if people, I think just if we wanted to do two, I would say we do two priorities at 150 each. So we're in for 300,000. I don't know where all that money's coming from unless it would have to come from 2C. But then Habitat doesn't get to match. They only get one extra. So there's three total priorities, two for us, one for somebody else, and then three for the general public. That's the only way I could get to more than two priorities total, with one being ours. That's a way I could get forward on that.
Okay, Matt,
I'm inclined to agree with what Jonathan just said and go that route. I don't know where the money would come from, and I think that's obviously a different discussion. But I'm still not really comfortable with the fact that, you know, Habitat's only raised 300 of the 1.2. But I would lean towards where Jonathan was talking from there.
okay, awesome. That helped kind of conceptualize where you're all at and where we can go with this. So we do have a motion on the table, which is very cleanly to just allow Habitat to increase those priorities to 150,000.
The clerk read the motion on my.
Yes.
Approve increase for priority units to 150,000 for 2 or 3 bedroom units in Glenwood Springs.
So we have a motion and we have a second. We'll go ahead and call the question.
Counselor Godus. Counselor Zelinski. Mayor Wusso.
Yes.
Counselor Weimer.
Yes.
Counselor Schachter. Counselor Sims.
Yes.
It passes 4-2.
Great. So, really?
Yeah.
Okay, can you read what just passed?
Okay.
What you just voted on?
Approve increase for priority units to $150,000 for 2 or 3 bedrooms in Glenwood Springs.
Yeah, go ahead.
So the way I'm reading this too, that's like the cost to the city. We're not dictating how much priorities are sold to others. We have no say in that, right? That's just the cost to the city.
No,
That's what we just voted on. is
yeah,
cost
the
to
motion that was
city.
passed would set it at 150 for those
That's
other priorities.
For the everybody's priority.
For
Oh,
everybody's
it is.
priorities.
I didn't know that we could vote
I-
on that.
That's actually not how I,
That's what I was gonna
down.
say. It says right here that it's
so
All right.
cost to the city.
Yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
it was for the Glenwood Springs
That's,
priority.
that's
specific
what I
of
thought.
Okay,
great.
Council
I get
Schachter's
it.
motion.
stand correct.
I'm
Okay.
trying to clarify.
Okay. So for
I got you, Zelinski.
Counselor Godus, thank you.
So that clarified, thank you, because then I'll make a motion for item number 4 for the city of Glenwood Springs to have one priority and to limit Habitat's priority to one additional unit. Like we talked about, Sumner.
You have a motion.
That was a motion.
Is there a second? Counselor Schachter.
I
Okay,
would
so we have a
second.
motion and a second. The city clerk, do you want to read that back to us?
1 priority unit and limit Habitat to 1 additional unit.
Clarification on that one. Sorry, Ryan, no offense. For Glenwood Springs to utilize 1 priority and then have 1 additional priority open to other employers. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Excellent.
Okay, I will open it up to comments. Counselor Schachter.
I feel like part of this is a little iffy, but I think conceptually letting others under item 6 be able to get in that bidding without a huge cost makes sense. I would say that to segue, I'll have trouble spending 2C on this just down the road for a variety of reasons, but I would support the motion as it stands and be listening to others as well.
Does anybody else have any comments? Counselor Zelinski.
I'm probably not going to support this motion, mainly because I'm concerned about funding for Habitat. I don't know that I think that we should meet in the middle. We talked about 50%, 50%. I think that might be fair. I could do that. I just would feel a little bit more comfortable allowing them to do a little bit more work on their own behalf.
So to clarify, you're saying that you're not going to support it. You would maybe support it if they had more opportunities for priorities? Sorry. Yeah.
No, I'm saying,
Go ahead.
I'm just saying that I don't know that I have all the information. I think they should be allowed to raise the money that's necessary. And if this is the way they can do it, they weren't able to fundraise it. They're coming from behind. This is an opportunity to continue that fundraising effort. I don't want to see them be able to sell all 6 as a priority. So this is a compromise, I think, like more than 2, less than 6.
In
I
the
would like
world
it-
of motions.
No, this is my comment. I'm not making a motion.
I know, no. I'm asking you though, in the event this fails, in the world of motions and you had to quantify it, what would it be?
I would prefer 3. I'd be comfortable with up to 4.
Okay, great. Counselor Gotis, I think you're responding to Counselor Zelinski.
I was gonna respond to you. That's, what do you need to witness? Yeah, I could go up to 3 in the world of motions, hypothetical motions. I would be happy if you had a friendly amendment. I would bring it up to 3 if 2 were City of Glenwood Springs and 1 was private. That's a 50-50 for meeting in the middle.
Okay. Counselor Zelinski, I've just put you back on to
Okay.
respond and then it's gonna be over to Weimer.
Okay. I would like to ask for a friendly amendment to bring it up to 3 instead of 3 total rather than just 2 total. 1 for the City of Glenwood Springs, 2 to be sold to other
For
employees.
city or for Glenwood people?
Well, it says.
Yeah.
I would say 3 is fine, but
Yep.
2 would be City of Glenwood, 1 would be for them.
Oh.
So there's 3 priority
So
units.
we'd have to purchase. I don't know that.
Okay, then
Okay.
let's see what the
Okay.
motion goes.
Counselor
Which
White,
motion are we-
on yours. Wait,
Jonathan.
Sean, yeah, okay.
I think Mitchell and Matt still need to talk.
Yep.
So I would support the first half of it. I would not support the second half. My position is we've decided, let's get a unit. I'm happy to do that. I think we have the 2C money to do it. And then outside of that, I think we stay out of the priority business. They've already said they're going to continue to fundraise. If they, and if they can't, then the project doesn't go through, right? And so it's kind of on them. And I feel like we're just dictating a little bit too much and we're getting a little bit too sort of manipulative by trying to establish the number of priorities. I think we just let them do what they do best. We've gotten them this far. Let's get in for a unit and get out of their way.
I want to clarify though, and maybe you all can help. Priorities allow the project to be sustainable. So if they have the opportunity to have the priorities, they can get the money
But
in
we're not-
advance to be actually able to build it. So it,
But we're not saying no priorities.
we
either.
are, we are saying, if we only purchase one, then they only can have one
No, I think we
priority.
changed that. I think we changed that little rule that it's not a 1-for-1 anymore,
Okay,
right?
we haven't changed it
I
yet.
would, that's,
Okay.
I guess I'm predicating
Okay.
that happening.
Yeah, that
Right?
you would remove the requirement that
Yeah.
be a 1-1. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Thank you. That's what Counselor Sims,
Kim, what is the motion again?
thank you.
Great question.
It's a great question.
This is the most I've ever talked. Glen- Glenwood Springs gets one priority unit and Limit Habitat to utilize one additional priority unit.
Okay, And Jonathan, that is, and it's because we want, your goal or your thought is to give it more opportunity to the smaller people in the city?
Counselor, he does. He needs to slide on.
Yeah,
Sorry.
yes, that would be the idea, Matt, yes.
Oh, okay, all right, I understand now, thank you.
Counselor Schachter.
Thank you. Again, I will support the motion as is, but I agree with the others. Another motion to get it out of the way would help. I'm a little bit encouraged that if I heard Gail correctly, they didn't have any big players step up at L3, even though it's a different structure. At a lower price. So I'm not sure that big players will snap up these priorities either. Also, if there were 4 more priorities at 150, that's 600,000. That does help close the gap. But I have no problem putting the burden back on Habitat. They've been successful in the past. So either way, I think we have a win. I will support this motion. I'll support another motion as it comes through if need be. But I think that their responsibility, they've got a good record of doing it, and I think we ought to go forward with our one for sure and call the question, see what happens.
So currently the question is just for the purchase of one with the city.
And one.
And
one-
to allow
one
another
priority,
priority,
and
yeah.
one priority. Okay,
At 150.
at 150.
At 150, but that, no,
That's what he said.
because the 150 is implied by the previous motion.
Exactly. Yes. Okay, great. We're gonna call the question.
Counselor Schachter,
Yes.
Counselor Weimer,
Hey.
Mayor Wusso, Counselor Zelinski, Counselor Godis,
Yes.
Counselor Sims.
Yes,
It fails 3-3.
I'd like to make another motion.
Okay. Go
I'd
ahead,
like to
Counselor
make a
Goss.
motion that we do 1 priority unit for the city and 2 priority units for Habitat to sell.
Counselor Zelinski.
I can second that motion.
Great, we have a motion on the table. Does anybody need it repeated, and does anybody need a comment before we vote? Okay,
Matt's hand is up.
oh, no, I'm going to take that down, sorry.
okay. Can you all turn on your mics while we do votes, please? Thank you, I appreciate it. Okay, awesome. Go ahead and call the question.
Counselor Godis,
Aye.
Counselor Zelinski,
Yes.
Mayor Wusso,
Yes.
Counselor Weimer,
Nay.
Counselor Schachter,
Yes.
Counselor Sims.
Yes,
It passes 5-1.
So you now have 3 priorities for the project, which is half of the project. One of them is committed to us for 150,000. You now have the opportunity to go out and get 2 more priorities. And it keeps 3 open for the community. Okay. Whew.
We will. You'll see that committed to writing on a consent agenda shortly.
Okay, I just want to say thank you. That's hard work, and I really appreciate you guys for your diligence. Thank you also to council for thoughtfully engaging in that conversation. Thank you, staff, as well. Appreciate you all. Yeah. Yeah, but we did go through a lot. Okay, thank you. I'm gonna take a little recess, little break, because I need to. Okay, thank you. Okay, we'll take a
Thank
break.
you. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Appreciate
you.
it.
Thank you, Gail.
Thank you.
You see Gail and now through retirement.
I don't.
Step into council comments. Item number 14, does anybody have anything this evening? Does anybody have anything this evening on this second day of January in 2025 that they are dying to share with their community? Oh, Counselor Godus does. Oops.
I just hope all of you had a wonderful holiday season. I had a great time with my family. I hope all of you did too. To our staff, Merry Christmas, Kwanzaa, Hanukkah.
Excellent, thank you. Yeah, and I do want to mention, that council, the election process has begun and that you can campaign, what is it, a letter to intent at this point? Yep. Do you want to give us a maybe we'll have city clerk Ryan Muse give us that overview because we've enjoyed hearing from you this evening.
Okay, you can go to our website and cogs.us and go to the city clerk page and you can fill out a notice of intent. And if you do that, you can sign it and you can pick up a packet from me and you can become a candidate.
Okay, so this is for those who are interested in running for city council. We
Yes.
have 3 city councilor positions that will be turned over and voted on in April.
Yes, Ward 2, Ward 5, and at large.
So if you're a member of West Glenwood, a member of South Glenwood, or anywhere else in town at the at-large position, it's an opportunity for your voice to be heard within the community, to sit up here and help us make good decisions as we shape the future of Glenwood. All of those who are out there and considering running, I encourage you. I think elections are best and most democratic when we have more than one position or one person running for the position. So I'd love to see multiple candidates in all those races. And I encourage you to run. If you have questions about the process or what the experience is like up here, I will encourage you to ask any of the city councilors up here, including me. Reach out. You can go to the city council page on cogs.us. And you can find our contact info. So we're happy to sit down, have coffee, and share the experience of what it's like to be a city councilor in the city of Glenwood. So thank you, Ryan. Thank you so much, all of you guys. I appreciate your willingness to do that same process in the past few years. City Manager Steve Floyd.
No, I think I'm good. Happy New Year.
Thank you. Did I steal your thunder? Were you going to do that?
Totally.
Yeah, I know. Beat you to it. You want me to try to guess what you're going to talk about too? No. City Attorney Carl Inman.
Nothing this evening.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I want to actually mention one more thing, and that is that this whole week, our police department has been actively doing training, just immersed in it and learning so much and re-engaging and practicing so that they can keep our community safe in the event of whatever happens in a time when we have so much just shocking and scary events happen. I just really appreciate your department, your willingness to give time and energy and resources to being ready and prepared. The communication between the police department and the emergency services like the fire and EMT, just having that communication practice and that ability to know what to expect. And it was amazing. I had an opportunity to head down on Monday morning and I was thoroughly impressed by the teams. So thank you. Okay, great. What I will look for then.
Oh, there's something in correspondence.
Oh yeah, something in correspondence. We should get like a red flag on that.
That's what my voice is.
It's a red flag.
It's true. It is.
Okay. Okay, we have,
I said it.
oh, I didn't even see it.
I didn't say that.
I didn't even know I won that award.
What does that have to do with us?
And friends.
Oh, wow, that's cool.
Well, congratulations.
Thank you. I didn't even know that was in there. My mom's gonna love it.
A trophy?
I didn't, it's from Senator Hickenlooper. And it says that I was recognized by the U.S. Department of Agriculture for their Forest Service Cultural Diversity Award.
I mean, congratulations. I'm shocked at Aaron's voice.
That surprises you? Let's talk about that later.
got a Planned Parenthood champion award too.
Okay, moving on. Thank you, Ryan.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you, Senator Hickenlooper as well. In all seriousness, it's very kind when people get recognized, so I appreciate it. Okay. For real now. We are going to adjourn out of,
So what I'd like to do, one, if you're gonna have a social event, you should probably announce that now.
okay,
Two, then when you make the motion to go into the executive session, if you would just tag on to the end of that. And to adjourn the regular meeting at the end of the executive session, so we have to go back on.
okay. Jonathan, would you do that for us, please? Thank you. It's right behind you. Thank you.
I need to go into the executive session.
Or for social.
Social,
Yeah.
social hour, would be at Doc Holidays
Oh,
at the,
We are going, okay.
are we not?
Microphone, microphone,
Sorry.
sorry. Okay. I don't think-
Social hour could potentially be at Doc Holidays at the conclusion of the meeting.
That's great. Okay.
I move to go into executive session pursuant to CRS 246424B for the purpose of receiving legal advice from the city attorney relating to litigation styled Mitchell Cooper Ditch and Pipeline Company, the City of Glenwood Springs and Roaring Fork Transportation Authority. Is there a second?
And to adjourn.
And to adjourn at the conclusion of the executive session.
Perfect. Counselor Zelinski.
I second.
Okay, great. We're gonna go ahead and clear the room. Oh, we have to vote on the motion. Sorry. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Matt? Okay,
Yes, I.
perfect. Any opposed? Okay, motion passes unanimously.
Hey, Matt, will you hop over to the other link?
Yeah, I'm trying to find it. I thought I had it and now I can't find it, but I will.
I'll email it to you again.
Alrighty, thanks.